Welcome to Adventures Gone Mad, your critical look at D&D books. My name is Kyle W., and I'm here with my favoriteest co-host.
Hey everybody, it's Kyle A.
Hey Kyle, how are you doing?
I am stressed out. Work is crazy. My life has been a little nuts. And yeah, I'm also very upset that I did not get my shoes. I
knew shoes were coming. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's always a shoe. So February, they drop a lot of shoes, and I need certain sneakers. I guess I'm a sneakerhead now, and I need certain sneakers in order for my life to be fulfilled.
Okay, when you say they drop the sneakers, it's like they announce they're selling the sneaker on a specific date, and then you have to fight people digitally and in person to get them. Is that right?
That is correct. It's sort of like any collectible. If it's Magic the Gathering cards, whatever, they're all pretty much the same sort of thing. There's a date when the shoe gets announced that it will be available for purchase, and then everyone fights over the ones that everyone really wants. And there's raffles, and there's everything in the world you can think of how to get these shoes. And I've lost out on. I basically got the shoe I didn't want so I could resell it, and I'm going to try to resell that shoe so I can get the shoe that I actually want.
Okay, and I'm going to assume by saying everyone, you mean like 1,000 people and their army of 1 million bots.
Yeah, that's part of it for sure. There's a whole war between, bots and anti-bots and people trying to get things legally, and it's a losing battle.
I was surprised though when I lived next to that Nike store, there was constantly a line wrapping around the building outside. So there's a lot of demand for that type of thing.
Yeah, no, there is a huge demand. It's a whole thing. And I mean, don't even get me started about Supreme and like how Supreme works. Like that's just crazy stuff.
I refuse to try to collect anything that I have to wait in a line for.
Everything you can pretty much get digitally, and then everything you can pretty much get on a resale site. It's just that like you have to, for the online stuff, are you going to get it? You're not going to get it. Like, are you going to be able to fight the bots or not in enough time? Is it something that somebody wants? It's so bad that there's 1 million bots that you're fighting against. It's a very interesting sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, some of these shoes are like literally millions of dollars. For Michael Jordan's shoes that he wore someplace, for his last game, it's like $1 million or $10 million or something ridiculous.
Well, I hope that you could get your shoe and finally be happy. Although I know that that's not how it works, because then another shoe comes out and you're like, but that one is slightly purple and I like that one, and then you just want that one. So
yeah, no, that's how that works.
Again, it's an endless cycle. You will never be happy until you drop your attachment.
And I have to say that I've pretty much got a ton of shoes now, and so there's only, like, it used to be every week there was something I wanted. Now it's like maybe once a month, if that it's like, oh, I would really like that. And so I try for it. And if I get it, it's great. And if I don't, it's like, eh. So Kyle, how are you doing?
I am doing pretty well. I recently started playing a new OSR game called Cities Without Number, it's made by this game designer named Kevin Crawford, who has made many other games that have the Without Number title in them. So there's Stars Without Number, Cities Without Number, Ashes Without Number, Worlds Without Number. And they're all different genres. And Cities Without Number is his take on cyberpunk, which is a genre I've always loved, even just like reading, novels about. I always joke that I was coming of age when The Matrix came out.
Right.
So I have 90s cyberpunk like Matrix brain damage, and I just think katanas and trench coats and Uzis are the coolest thing ever. So I've always loved cyberpunk, and I've always really, really liked the Shadowrun setting. It's probably one of my favorite fantasy settings. I would say my favorite genre is like modern fantasy, just like the modern world with magic and shit in it. That's why I always liked World of Darkness back in the day. But Shadowrun has always been a really cool system, and there's a couple really good video games for Shadowrun in that setting. But other than that, like the actual tabletop RPGs for Shadowrun are very lacking. There's 6 different editions of the game. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but they've always been kind of like bogged down by being too complex and just too hard to run. I like Shadowrun, but if I wanted to run it, I don't think I could run that game unless people actually all read the book.
Right.
I could do that, I can run D&D Basic if people don't read the book. I can run 5th edition if people don't read the book. I can run many different OSR games just by telling people what to do and helping them make their character. Like, ultimately, for an RPG, you should just be able to be like, think like your character and make those decisions and get told what dice to roll and you're good. But Shadowrun is like, it's like, okay, roll initiative. Are you running your wired reflexes? Okay, this is how many times you go. You're shooting. What kind of ammo are you shooting? Are you shooting gel ammo? Are you shooting, are you shooting incendiary ammo? Oh, you're shooting. Are you shooting full auto? Are you shooting in 3-round bursts? Like, roll 16 dice. How many hits did you get? Okay, how many net hits did you get? Like, it just keeps going, right?
Sounds like GURPS. That sounds like we're playing GURPS. Like, oh god, no.
And I think it could be a lot of fun. Like, I think I still enjoy making, like, occasionally I will just make, like, a Shadowrun 5th edition character just to have fun. And I think that there's a certain, like, I enjoy that type of crunchiness sometimes, but I've just, as far as running a game, it's just always been a headache. And every single time I've tried to run Shadowrun, it just doesn't work because of the system. But Cities Without Number kind of solves that in a lot of really interesting ways, because it is a really easy to play game that has, I think, it feels like it has just enough crunch in it to be enjoyable. And in the appendix of the paid version, there's a free version that anyone can just get. Kevin Crawford always releases his RPGs for free, and then he has like a paid version that has an appendix with a bunch of cool stuff in it, so you want to pay for it. For Cities Without Number, the appendix is basically rules for running Shadowrun. He doesn't call it that, but it's very obvious. Like,
that's great.
Like, here's my cyberpunk book. Okay, here's a thing in the back that's a magician, and here's a thing that's a shaman, a summoner, and here's a thing that's an adept, an inspired. And here's, like, all these races that I made up that are vaguely, like, trolls, elves, and dwarves, and orcs. Just as a coincidence. I don't know if there's a setting you want to run with that, but whatever. So you can run Shadowrun with it. So I've been enjoying that. I introduced some new players to Shadowrun. I'm going to be starting up like a game in person here pretty soon.
Yeah, I go gaming in person. What the hell?
I know. I haven't been gaming. So I moved in 2020, like right when COVID happened. So like, I stopped my in-person groups because I moved to a completely different state, and I never, like, I played some games in person, but I haven't run a game yet in person, so that's exciting.
Well, COVID put I was in an in-person game before COVID, and, it kind of, that game had its own issues. So, but in the end, like, yeah, we couldn't meet anymore, and then it sort of killed a lot of in-person stuff.
I'm just excited I could play Shadowrun again in a system that I like, that runs well. Like, I know when we played, I was like amazed. The first game that we ran, I was amazed at like how much stuff happened, because I was like, man, in Shadowrun this wouldn't be. Just to give you a warning, when I was going to play that game, I was listening to some online, like, Shadowrun, people running Shadowrun, just to see what it was like. Just to like get a feel of, like, I like listening to different DMs run games just to like kind of see what's happening, for a new system. And even though I wasn't playing in the actual Shadowrun system, I just wanted to see what like the different versions of the game was like, because Cities Without Number, the tech level is like the older version of Shadowrun, where there's not really any wireless, like you have to plug into stuff to make it work. Like, so I wanted to like get the vibe down for that type of game. And I watched a game where it took place in the middle of the mission failed, and they went down, they escorted a person downstairs into a parking lot, and they got into an escape car and left, and it was like 5 hours. And that's all that happened.
Yeah. I remember GURPS being like that, where we're like, okay, well, this combat has lasted we've been doing this combat for 3 hours. Can we just see who gets a critical hit and be done? Yeah. So there was a lot of that. But yeah, like when you get these crunchy systems, it's just for some people, you just love it, right? Like that's their deal. But most people just want to roll some dice and do some things. And yeah.
Yeah, I want to feel like I got something done in our, 4-hour session, 3-hour session.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, in Cities Without Number, it also has like he does the hacking rules like way different because Shadowrun's always had a problem where the hacker's playing a mini game that is not involved with anyone else, and it's kind of like it takes a long time because they're in cyberspace and they can go a bunch of times because it's all in their head. But like Cities Without Number kind of fixes that with this really cool system where the hacker loads verbs and nouns into cyberspace and then uses those to hack. So, you could have like the verb open and the verb kill, and you could have like door and turret, right? So you could be like, well, I'm gonna open door with by putting my verb and my subject together. So it just yeah, I was like, I'm really impressed with it. I like it a lot. I'm gonna definitely check out his other games for sure.
Nice.
All right, so getting into things here, we are covering Castle Amber this week, Kyle.
Sure are.
Did you have any experience with Castle Amber, like at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay, what was your experience?
So I ran a game where I was the DM for Castle Amber, but we only got past we got into the one wing and then another wing, and that was it. And there was a lot of hand waving is what I would say. Like people wanted to do things and I just said like, sure. There was a lot less dice rolling and there was very storytelly, if I can explain it that way. And then I also played in a game of Castle Amber and we didn't get very far again. But that was much more crunchy and it was taking a long time. Like it just seemed it was very slow and we didn't get very far. But all I can remember is like seeing some of the pictures and then just showing those to people and people getting all like, "Ooh, that's really cool." Because that very first page has that guy with the antlers. Yeah, yes. People were like all into that. So that's kind of all I remember. And I was like 10, I think.
I was gonna say, was this like last year or were you a baby? Like I never. Okay.
No, I was like 10. So that was like 40 years ago. So
okay,
44 years ago. So there you go.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. My experience with this is like I've never played it. I know about it. I knew it's always listed whenever there's like a listicle that's like the top 10 adventures of all time. It's usually listed in there. And I knew it from Dungeons Reincarnated and I knew the cover. So I was like, yeah, I know there's like some undead giant thing in this. And that's all I knew before we went into it. And it has something to do with the French language.
All of those things are true.
So why, this was your, like, going back and forth, this was like kind of your pick. Is there a specific reason why you wanted to do this?
Someone had, one of our listeners had talked about it, and I was like, yeah, we should really do that one. That one I remember being really interesting, and it has a lot of, D&D zeitgeist. I don't know how you want to call that. There's a lot of talk about it. And we haven't talked about that one yet. So it's one of the ones that I always wanted to talk about, but, sort of wanted to get through some of the other stuff and do something different before we get to this one.
Yeah, this was one that I knew we were going to do at some point. Like, this is, there's like a few modules I know we're going to do. It's just like getting to them. This is what I knew we were going to do.
Yeah. And it just seemed when the listener said, hey, when are you going to do Castle Amber? I was like, oh, well, we should just do Castle Amber next.
Hey, that works for me. So this is, it's kind of funny. We did a lot of like ancillary reading after we wrote this module. Cause we went, so basically at the end of this module, there's a list of like, oh, hey, here's all the stuff that like inspired this. Cause this was inspired by stories from Clark Ashton Smith, who wrote for Strange Tales.
Stop time.
Hey everyone, post-edit correction here. Multiple times in this podcast, I say Strange Tales as the name of the magazine. The magazine is actually Weird Tales. Weird Tales is the name of the magazine. It's still running, and a bunch of it is on archive.org if you're interested in it. But yeah, that's the magazine that all these stories are from. It's called Weird Tales. Thanks.
Time begins to move.
The pulp magazine that honestly is probably like the most proto Dungeons and Dragons thing, because every single person that wrote modules for this just like devoured that magazine. Like it's been referenced multiple times by by the stuff that we've read. So it's important. But Clark Ashton Smith was he was considered one of the big three for Strange Tales magazines, which was like they had three authors that were often published in that magazine that were like, popular. That was H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and Robert E. Howard.
Wow.
So Clark Ashton Smith is kind of like the least known of all three of those, right? Because you have H.P. Lovecraft, and then you have like Robert Howard, which is, I wouldn't call them household names, but at least in nerd, they're nerd household names.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone is more familiar with Lovecraft, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Lovecraft definitely got a lot more exposure through like video games and other inspirations, stuff pulling from him. But I didn't really know anything about Clark Ashton Smith until we did this podcast and I started doing research on it. Like I had never really heard of this guy.
I had not either. And I hadn't, when I was a kid and I read this stuff, I didn't even think there was a relation to any of those things because I didn't really understand them.
Yeah. So the Castle Amber, it takes place in, we kind of covered this a little bit when we talked about the Lost City and when we talked about the Isle of Dread. But it takes place in what used to be called the Known World. That was the original name for the setting that was created in Isle of Dread. So if you read through the beginning of the Isle of Dread, there's a few pages where it's like, here's like the setting, and it talks about like the different nations of the world, and that's where this takes place in one of those nations. And that was they later called that Mystara. So Mystara is the official name of the setting that this takes place in. So if you Google stuff, you could look up Mystara. It's also the setting that the Capcom game Shadows over Mystara takes place in, the one I keep talking about like every other podcast because I love that game.
I have not played it.
We're going to play it sometime. I'll bring it over. It's super good. So going back to the Isle of Dread, in the Goodman Games Dungeon Adventures Reincarnated, at the very beginning, there's an intro where there's it's like a foreword from different designers. Some of them are, involved, or it's like a historical document. Lawrence Schick did do the intro for Isle of Dread, and he did talk about like kind of the creation of it. So I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit because it involves Tom Moldvay, which is the author of Castle Amber. So the intent was that the expert set that included Isle of Dread would introduce DMs to the wilderness and would give them like a wider world to run D&D adventures on. So this is a quote from Lord Schick. So we were going to need a wider fantasy world to put them in. Up to that point, most of TSR scenarios had been set in Gary Gygax's world of Greyhawk, but we couldn't use that as it was Gary's personal campaign setting, and it was reserved for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game products. I can't remember whether it was Moldvay or me who had suggested it, but we proposed dusting off our known world documents for use as the new standard D&D campaign setting. This got approved, I think, by Mike Carr, and a revised version of our campaign map was hexed up by the art department for use in X1, the Isle of Dread, which you now have a deluxe version in your hands, by Goodman Games. So essentially, like they had a campaign setting called the Known World that was adapted for in the expert set that was adapted for the world, and then that Castle Amber takes place in one of those areas. There is also a sequel to Castle Amber that happened much later. Do you want to talk about that, Kyle?
So yeah, there's a sequel called Mark of Amber. It is a sort of you wouldn't really probably run the characters that you had in the original. It's more of it's hundreds of years later, if not like 1,000, something like that, like 500 or something like that. It's like a really long span of time between then. And I don't know how much we want to give away, but basically it's all about Etienne Amber, who is Stephen Amber, and sort of what happens to him. It also involves a lot of Glantry, which is we were talking about Mystara. So that is the country that Castle Amber is in, and specifically there's a province that's run by House Selene, I think is what it's called. Yeah, Selene, Solaire, it's an R. Solaire, who is actually the Ambers. So there's a whole, so they're sort of, and there's all these different houses that run Glantry. And then Glantry, in and of itself, is a country run by mages. So anybody who's a mage, like if you want to have any pull in the world, you need to be a magic user, especially nobles. Like nobles, they don't want to listen to anybody unless they can wield magic. So it's all about sort of Etienne and what happened before. There's a span of time after Castle Amber. This then happens, and you have to go. It's actually a really good module. It might be one of the ones that we at some point in time talk about as well, because it's actually pretty, kind of an interesting module in and of itself. But yeah, so it also comes with this audio track, which is really strange. So when you're reading Mark of Amber, they're like, okay, well, play this track on the CD, and then they're like, play this next track on the CD, and play this next track on the CD. So yeah, it's kind of strange. It's really interesting. The module itself seems okay, but yeah.
And the tracks for the CD, they're like, so when I got a hold of it, I just like randomly listened to things because I was like, well, there's an audio CD. Like, is this music? Like, what is this? And I clicked on something and it was just like a random guy giving a monologue. So
yeah,
the module will sometimes be like, this person comes into the room and says this, play track 24, and then it will play it or whatever. Right now, no context. I'm just going to randomly pick a track and then insert it into this podcast. It's not going to make any sense, but I'm still going to do it right now.
Poison in my cup.
Lucky you detected it in time. What tipped you off?
My dear brother, I can't remember the last time I sat down to a family dinner without a detect poison spell handy.
Unfortunately, you were right. But we'll deal with this after the ceremony.
So yeah, that's Mark of Amber. And then, as a part of my reading, I read sort of there's a bunch of history of that, or kind of, I had to summarize what's going on there, because there's all this stuff that happens. Like in Mark of Amber, there's this history that includes before Castle Amber, and then after Castle Amber. So there's all of it, like puts all of this history into there, and like where the Ambers come from, and how it all happened, and everything else. It's like the whole history is in Mark of Amber.
Also interesting, yeah, because in this module they're just like, there's this weird family and they're from this place, and it doesn't really give you too much history.
Right. Whereas this one goes through the entire history of what happened, because you sort of need to know all that because of what happens with Stephen Amber and all that stuff. And then, as part of that, I also read the principles of Glantry and the Gazetteer, and that goes over the whole like structure of the country, everything being magic users. And then obviously, since the Ambers are very powerful magic users, they influence the country quite a bit. Spoiler alert, Etienne takes potions of longevity and lives for a very, very long time. So, he is influencing the country for centuries. So,
and it's interesting because, the series that you're talking about, the Gadgeteers, there is a Gazetteer for each. So in the Node world, in Mystara, if you go to the beginning of Isle of Dread, it talks about like, it gives you like a small little snippet of like, this country is like this country is like this country is like this. And there's a Gazetteer for each one of those that kind of goes more into that specific country, that they were released in the 90s. So they are kind of fun to read if you want like a little more background information, but I don't know how good they are.
Well, this is amusing and interesting, like, because there's also obviously a lot of other stuff that goes on in Glantry that isn't just about the Ambers. Like, there's a reason why it's a magic country, because there's like a big magical mystery there, that it's super powerful, and there's a lot of bleeding magic over. And then there's even like almost like space aliens, like people that come from a different dimension. They're fleeing their dimension to come to our dimension because of this thing. It's like it's like a whole deal. So it's pretty interesting and weird. So in and of itself, like, you know, like the synopsis for this module for me has been like the eccentricities of the ambers, and you know the whole country's eccentric. You know, it's like it's all this like weird. It just influences everything. So
yeah, and as far as the gazetteers go, like as far as the modules that we read, like whether or not it's good, I don't really care as much as I care about these as like historical documents in a way.
yeah,
So it's always interesting to read those types of things. Like I always find it fascinating because a lot of times it was like at that point it came out in the mid 90s, so it was handed off to another person that had, you know, might not have had anything to do with it. Actually, who wrote that?
I have it open by Bruce Hurd. Yeah, Bruce Hurd. So one of the other things I just want to point out about Glantry that I think is really fascinating and also lends itself to a lot in this module is that clerics are heretics in Glantry. There are no clerics, and if you find out that they're a cleric, they will kill you. So you can't worship any gods, which is very... Druids and clerics are basically heretics.
Because you're doing magic without your brain, I guess?
Yeah, or they just don't want that influencing them, which is, you know, kind of like... I guess I'll spoil this a little bit. The Ambers come from a place where they were hunted for being sorcerers and being magic users, and by the church. So there's a whole interesting piece of this where they don't want any religion involved in their country. And then as a part of, you know, you could see it in here as well, that like there's no gods. We don't want any gods here.
That's interesting because normally, I mean, you see a lot of the opposite in D&D settings where it's like magic is heresy and the church puts you to the gallows if they find out you're a wizard. So that's like an interesting, I guess, inversion of that trope.
Yeah, they don't want to be hunted, and they don't want any of that stuff. So no clerics, which I thought it would be a very interesting campaign like place, like if you know, to start anything. It'd be pretty interesting. That's why I think like Mark of Amber would be a pretty interesting one to run along, obviously, with this if you wanted to go back in time and deal with, you know, expert D&D.
Yeah, be like your, or yeah, do a campaign where it's like your party is cursed to deal with the Amber family just repeatedly, like you just can't stop. And yeah, if you're not going to play a D&D expert. There is also, and as far as going back in time, if you don't want to run the expert D&D or like basic D&D, you could run Old School Essentials, which is a box set that you could get that's basically like someone took basic expert D&D and was like, what if I republished this and like kind of cleaned it up and made it a little more like better presentation and added some like... He didn't add like alternate rule. I think there's some alternate rules, but they did things like you have the option to have ascending armor class instead of descending armor class, because that just doesn't make sense to some people. It's the same. It's literally the same math, but there's a system for it. So if you have like any interest in these old D&D modules, you could always run Old School Essentials.
It makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to run Castle Amber now, and I don't even think I would run Mark of Amber, but it is interesting to see how, you know, all these things are put together, and there's a lot of really good ideas in here.
And Castle Amber does have a 5th edition version in the Goodman Games Dungeons Reincarnated series. There's a 5th edition version in there, as well as the original.
Oh, that's right, because Dungeons Reincarnated. Yeah, Dungeons Reincarnated has it.
Yes, those are fantastic products. If we talk about any of the modules that are in that, like, I highly recommend those books. It's like a hardcover book. It comes with the original module. It comes with the 5th edition version, and then there's some like supplementary interview materials and stuff about it. So those are definitely worth it. All right. We also kind of split up and read different Averoigne stories. So these were based on the Strange Tales stories by Clark Ashton Smith. He had a fake French, it was like an alternate reality of France where sorcery exists. Of like I don't know, like Dark Ages France where wizards and stuff exist. And it was called Averoigne. And that is where this heavily inspired. They actually got permission from his estate to use it for this module. And we kind of split up and read those stories. So we both read so in page 28 in the module, it talks, there's a bibliography, and he gives the different stories of Clark Ashton Smith to read for inspiration of this. None of these stories, there are references to these stories in the module. But you don't have to read these unless you want to get like a vibe of the type of stories that Clark Ashton Smith wrote.
They're they're not as dark as Lovecraft, but they're very dark.
Yeah, and Clark Ashton Smith from what I can tell, looking into his history, he was a poet. Well, he's a poet, and he was writing poetry, and then he started writing these like pulp horror stories for Strange Tales because it paid more money than poetry, is my guess. I don't think I have definitive proof of that, but so you can tell in the language that he uses that he's actually like a poet. Like the way that he writes is much more, there's more like flowery text than either Lovecraft or Howard.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost on the bordering of being hard to read. Like it's, from the ones that I read, some of them were easy reads and some of them were really hard reads, depending on which one they were. But they were all sort of dark and mysterious and like Lovecraft, not necessarily happy stories.
Yeah. They're kind of like, and they were in Strange Tales, and I think Strange Tales, everything in Strange Tales is like, has to be some sort of Twilight Zone, like weird twist that's like kind of edgy. Like I think that's what that entire magazine was about. Because every single one that I read from him, it was like slightly edgy, and it talked about like people getting murdered, and he used the word Satan. He used the word Satan and satanic a lot. It would like describe things as satanic, which like I'm sure the audience of Strange Tales just loved reading like stories about that. Like that he was obviously writing for the audience.
Yeah, for sure. And also his setting is this 15th century France, basically. So
I read a few stories. The one that I just want to talk about one of them. It's called The End of the Story. By the way, these are all like pretty old, so any of these, if you look up this bibliography, you could just Google all of these stories and read them. That's like kind of what we did. So the one I want to talk about is The End of the Story, which is about a law student who he takes refuge in a monastery after a storm. And he's an intelligent, like he's like a law student, so he's interested in books and like history and stuff. And he talks to the abbot there. The abbot's like, you can look into our library and read anything you want, except for this forbidden book that's in this shelf. Don't read it. It's forbidden. You're not allowed to read it. So, as you could guess, he reads the book that he's not allowed to read, because it would be an interesting story if he was like, okay, I won't read that book.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in Strange Tales, which is all like horror and Twilight Zone type stuff happening. So he reads the forbidden book, and he discovers that there's a nearby ruin, and he becomes obsessed with it. And he goes there, and he finds like this super hot woman who like ensorcels and bewitches him. And he is later saved by the abbot, who says that she is a lamia, and she was trying to like eat him. At the end of the story, basically, she's like, you'll come back and find me anyways, because I've like ensorcelled you. And it's just like, at the end of the story, he's like, yeah, I'm going back to find that woman because I can't stop thinking about her. So that's like the weird twist, right? Is that he ends up dying anyways.
So the very first one I read is a very similar story of a lamia basically enchanting a person, a man. And then they actually go into a different dimension. So I think that's the piece with the Castle Amber thing. We're like, oh, it goes into, like, there's this whole other dimension that this lamia lives in, and he's in love with her or falls in love with her. And then, but I think there's a werewolf who, when he turns back into a man, is like, look, it's a lamia. It's going to kill you. You're going to it's going to eat you. And basically he's like, at the end, he's like, I don't care. I'm just going to be with her, and kills the werewolf. So it's like, okay, you're just doomed anyway. You just want to get enchanted by this beautiful woman, because there's a lot of beautiful women references in these.
I wonder, they're probably the same character, to be honest.
Could be, yeah.
It seems kind of weird that there's a magic lamia that eats people,
right?
In both,
but this one, yours lives in a ruins, and this one lives in another dimension in a castle.
Yeah. So actually, in this, I think it's another dimension that she lives in, because I don't remember if it was if it was a hallucination or another dimension. But he goes into the ruins and ends up in this Feywild place where she lives. So
okay, that's kind of the same thing. Yeah, I guess all lamias live in different dimensions.
They are stereotyping lamias in this book, and it's unfair.
It's unfair to lamias.
Not all lamias are vampiric women who live in other dimensions that want to eat men. That's not true.
That's not true.
But anyways, his stories are. I mean, I read. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. I read 5 of them, and I think only one of them I was like, whatever. But the other 4, I enjoyed reading them. I love the Twilight Zone. I love reading stuff with weird twists in it. Yeah, so I can see the allure of this type of genre fiction, and why the people that made D&D were so obsessed with strange tales.
I will say I read one that is the cover of the module of the giant. Okay. It's called the Colossus of Yulorn, I think is what it's called, and so that is kind of the cover of the module.
Yeah, it's referenced in the 3rd act in the module.
Yeah,
which is kind of so. Speaking of the cover of the module, I'm assuming this is Errol Otis. I don't know for sure, but it looks like
for sure.
Art.
Yeah, okay. No, it's for sure Errol Otis.
He colors things in a specific way. Let's just say that. I can always tell his art by the way that he colors things. But yeah. After reading the module, I am very surprised that that's the art for the cover of this module. Going into this, I was like, okay, this module is obviously about you're in a castle and giants try to kill you. That was my thought, because the cover art is a giant breaking apart a turret of a castle, and little people falling out of it, right? So I was like, that's what this module is probably about. That it is not. That's a part at the end that is kind of off screen a little bit. I'm very surprised this is the cover of this.
Who knows what was going on, and who knows if maybe Errol Otis loved that story the most. So he's like, I'm going to do this. And no one said, hey, don't do that, because we're not going to actually have that in the module.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah. Or someone was like, draw this. And then they ended up cutting it from the module and made it less of a part. Who knows? But it's kind of surprising that that's the art of the cover of this.
But it got me to buy it. You know what I mean? That cover, because, when we got these modules, they're wrapped. You weren't able to look and see what was inside of them. And there wasn't, you didn't have the internet to say, hey, this one's about blah, blah, blah. It was you just looked at the cover and you looked at the back cover and said, I guess I'll buy this one. So
yeah, and you just had the description. So what is the description on the front of this? Trapped in the mysterious Castle Amber, you find yourselves cut off from the world you know. The castle is fraught with peril. Members of the strange Amber family, some insane, some merely deadly, lurk around every corner. Somewhere in the castle is the key to your escape. But can you survive long enough to find it? That's all you had. Was that in the Attack on Titan thing on the front?
Yeah, and then the back of the module also has art, so you would buy it based on that as well. And that just shows this body, and there's a magician, and there's a lot of magic stuff going on.
Okay, the back of the module though, I like the art on the front, but the back of the module is awesome. I love this it's like a wizard wearing a weird mask. It's good. I love it.
It made me want to buy the module.
This is the type of stuff that when I'm reading through these modules, I will just randomly send pictures of it to the guy who did our to Dana, who did the cover of our podcast for us. I randomly just send it because we both love like that era of fantasy art, and it's always funny that like, you know, I'll send him random pictures and he'll be like, hell yeah. It's just like a wizard doing some random wizard shit. It's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want, man. That's what I want to play. That's what I want to be.
I did want to talk a little bit about Dragon Magazine. So I went through and essentially I was like, okay, where in Dragon Magazine do they talk about Castle Amber? I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on this. So in Dragon Magazine number 197, it does talk about here's a quote from, so basically there's a letter, they're talking about like the next product. So it says, in the summer of 1994, the known world will become a brand new campaign setting for the AD&D game. World-famous designer Jeff Grubb has been hard at work on the colossal task of converting the massive amount of known world data into the new World of Mystara campaign set. If everything goes right, we should also have a new look at Monstrous Compendium with color art. A new adventure module for dungeon lovers, and a Gazetteer-style accessory on the classic Castle Amberville that reveals the latest of the amazing fate of Etienne de Amberville. Also available will be AD&D Almanac, blah, 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 blah. So I was reading that, and I was like, that product doesn't exist. What is this? Yeah. There is no World of Mystara box set. I would know about this. What is happening? That never came out. What? So I was like doing research in it, and the person that they mentioned here, Jeff Grubb, who was a designer for TSR, led it to his blog, which shout out to Jeff Grubb's blog, that he still writes in it, and it goes back all the way to like 2002. So I'm just like reading this, and I'm like, man, I miss like the blog internet. Like, I love that this all exists and it didn't get wiped out, and like, you know, if this was on someone's Facebook or something, it would have been deleted, right?
Right.
So he wrote a post in June 28th of 2017 called "Why I Left TSR," that mentions this. So I will link his blog post in the description if you want to read it yourself. But this is really funny. Okay, so he talks about so he really liked the known world, and he had a great time on this product, and it was like kind of his baby. And he was the one that renamed the world to Mystara. Like, he came up with that name because like they needed to differentiate it from the Forgotten Realms, and the known world is really close. Like, that kind of sounds like Forgotten Realms, or I guess the opposite of Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
In a way, the known world. So
Yeah.
they needed to call it something else. So they came up with the name Mystara. So I'm just going to read this quote because it's really funny. And I set to work renaming the world Mystara and poking at all the nooks and crannies, and then everything went to hell over the logo. Yeah, the logo. The sales VP, perhaps it was the marketing VP, TSR seemed to always have one but not the other, wanted to be deeply involved in creating the logo, and since fantasy meant knights, dragons, castles, and wizards, he wanted all of those things. On the logo, it was a dog's breakfast of a design. A couple of the artists threw up their hands trying to put it together, and no one in design liked the proposal much. Any attempt to minimize any one element was rejected. Finally, there was some come-to-Jesus moment where a multidisciplined group confronted the sales marketing guy and said this was a bad idea. We eventually ended up with the logo shown here. So it has like the actual logo for Mystara is like an M with like a vine around it. He says, and he backed down. That was Thursday. And then by the next Monday, the entire nature of the product had changed. By order of management, including the sales marketing guy, instead of doing all of Mystara, the project would concentrate on the Karamikos only. Oh, and since it would now tie in with the first quest line, we would also put audio CDs in it, and the deadline would not change. So he essentially So yeah, all the material I had put together was pretty much wiped off the board. So yeah, basically he like got in a fight with. So he was working on this box set, and one of the C-suite people was like, "This logo should be this," and they were like, they tried to do it, and it looked like shit, and they had to have a bunch of people tell this guy it looked like shit, and then I don't have proof of this, and I don't know if this is what he's insinuating, but then his project got canceled. It turned into something else, which is like some petty business backstabbing, and I hate it.
Yeah,
and it sounds exactly like everything I've heard about like early TSR.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it talks about a little bit about Mark of Amber. I highly recommend like going and reading his blog post because it's pretty interesting. But yeah, as I was reading Dragon Magazine, I was like, that box set that doesn't exist. What the hell? What is this? This never came out. And then I ended up on Jeff Grubb's blog. There is also a Mystara website where I guess they were going to release the unreleased manuscript on there, but I think there was like some stuff with Wizards of the Coast and like ownership, and it never happened. I couldn't find the actual manuscript of it, unfortunately. I'd love to see that, but that's a funny story that this module led me to.
Pretty cool.
And the book that ended up coming out that replaced the Mystara campaign setting was Karamiko's Kingdom of Adventure, which was just like a normal setting book. It wasn't like a box set or anything like that. It's a 126-page explorer's guide. So yeah, unfortunately, I think we were kind of robbed of we might have been robbed of a really cool setting book based on some like business backstabbing.
Yep.
But that was like, you know, the one of the dominoes that fell that made Jeff Grubb eventually quit TSR. Okay, so now into the module itself. Now that we've talked about all of that stuff for an hour. So I do want to talk about like the first thing that you do when you open this is you see, now that I've read the module, this art's like a little surprising, but there's like an old man with an axe on a deer, which is like kind of cool. Like I mean, I think this art's really cool. But it doesn't, I don't know if it captures the vibe of this adventure too much. Like,
no, it really doesn't.
I don't
know.
Yeah. I don't remember this specific part.
It's great art.
It didn't stick out to me if it wasn't there, but it's cool art.
Like, I want that to be my character.
Yeah, I do want to play a grizzled old man, fighter, barbarian, whatever.
Yeah, dude, he's buff too. Like, he's been working out.
Yeah, he has like 1% body fat. He's all muscle. Castle Amber was released in 1981. It was written by Tom Moldvay, who we have covered before in The Lost City. And he was involved with the Red Box and the Isle of Dread. So he's like one of the fathers of early D&D. He's a very important designer. It is for levels 3 through 6. And in 1981, the most popular movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Best-selling album was Queen Greatest Hits. And Pac-Man was the video game.
Nothing has changed in 81.
Yeah, nothing.
We've talked about 81 a lot because there's a lot of these modules got released in 81.
Yeah, actually, I just copy-pasted that from my notes from another 1981 module that we did. Okay, so I know you kind of got into the synopsis of this, Kyle, but your synopsis of this again?
The eccentricities of the Embers is kind of what my synopsis was.
My synopsis is trashy, weird Jerry Springer show family, except they are nobles and wizards.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so there was a sequel already, Mark of Amber. We did talk about that a little bit. But you don't need to know any of that for this. So I guess we'll start in earnest on page number 2. So this breaks down that you should have 6 to 10 characters between level 3 to 6 of experience. And this is one of those modules that says, hey, you should have between 26 and 34 levels of experience between all your players, which is kind of cool. It's better than just being vibes-based. And you should have at least 1 magic user or elf and 1 cleric.
Gotta have an elf or a cleric.
Do your elf check. You better bring an elf.
I always have an elf.
So, and also, we've talked about this before, but like, I am a little surprised at these early modules. My assumption with them is that they were harsh, it's super hard, and the DMs were super mean. But there's a quote in here that says, everyone should cooperate to make the adventure fun and exciting. So that was not really true in the source material. They did not want you to be that way.
Yeah, that was not my experience of early D&D. As a kid, it was more of kids torturing other kids and trying to kill their characters. So there you go. There'll be no fun while I'm here. My fun is killing you.
So the next two paragraphs had a thing that I have not heard anyone talk about, and it made me. I wrote WTF on my on my notes because so this module, it says it's not for a single session, like you're supposed to do multiple gaming sessions, and what is it? The party has an unknown powerful ally looking after them. Prince Stephen Amber, described later in
Etienne. That's Etienne. Etienne.
Well, it's Stephen Amber because I'm not saying the French.
Yeah, I know. It's Stephen Amber in this module.
He will send a cloud of amber light to encircle the party at the end of the gaming session. This light will protect the party from all wandering monsters and provide nourishment. The amber light will also restore lost hit points to wounded characters and allows magic users, elves, and clerics a chance to regain their spells. So at the end of the session, your characters freeze in this amber light, and then, like, in 5th edition terms, it would be gets a long rest. But you get all of your HP, like, you get in D&D, in this version of D&D, you don't get all your HP back when you rest. So you get, like, all of your stuff back when you end the session. Which is, like, I've never heard of this in this module.
It's awfully kind. Yeah, I don't remember reading that and doing that. I don't think that we, when we were kids, we really didn't read these things.
So that made me wonder. I was like, I wonder if people that played Castle Amber were like, we're gonna die. I want all my spells back. Can we just end now before we go in the next room? Like, that had to have happened.
Yeah. Right.
And man, if I was playing this with a level 6 wizard and I knew I was getting my spells back at the end of the session, everyone's eating fireballs. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I am going crazy with those fireballs if I know I'm getting all my spells back at the end of the session, no matter what. It doesn't seem like it's like I didn't get a sense that this was balanced that way. By the way, when I was reading this, like that's balanced thinking for the magic users getting all their spells back. Like I don't think that was considered. I think they were more going for the vibe of this dungeon, more so than the balance.
Yeah, I also think that might be one of the reasons why if people followed that rule, it'd be interesting to know how many people did follow all that, but it would make it kind of an enjoyable experience because, it's like you can sort of get through everything. It's sort of like, you go and like play Diablo and you have a level 300 character and you go through everything. There's a little bit of nice of code. Like, okay, I get to actually not stress out that my characters are all going to die immediately and what we're going to do.
Right. It would be a nice break because, like, most of these modules kind of play like what we would call like a survival game or a horror game, where you have to like consider how many resources you have, and you have to keep that in mind all the time. So it'd probably be fun to let loose in one of these modules and just be like, I'm getting my fireballs back at the end of the session. I don't care. Fireball, lightning bolt.
Yep.
Like,
my 6th level spell is going to be used every single session.
Yeah. Like, oh, we're about to end. I run in the other room and cast reverse gravity just because I want to.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I run back and then get covered in amber light. So yeah, that was like I just, I did not heard of that. So it's kind of interesting that. So moving on to the next page 3, we talk about the Amber family in earnest. And that's important because this entire module is about how weird they are. So they did not come from our world. They came from Averoigne, which is the stories that we were talking about earlier take place in Averoigne, which is a fantasy French.
Averoigne. It's Averoigne. Why can't you just say things in French, Kyle? You gotta say all things overall.
I super
kind of mime it too. So
I super can't right now because of what's happening with my allergies.
Yeah, there's that.
So they're from Averoigne, and which is an alternate reality France where magic is real. So it actually gives you 2 rules here. It says magic is real but illegal, and the laws upheld by the church, and the world has not yet progressed beyond medieval technology.
It's basically setting up the world of the guy that we had. I keep on wanting to say Orson Scott Card. It's not Orson Scott Card at all.
Oh, Clark Ashton Smith.
Yeah, Clark Ashton Smith. So it really is setting up that the world of Clark Ashton Smith is this whole other world, and they come from that world.
Yeah, and when I was reading this, I got a very like Castle, like obviously I'm a video game brained, but I was like very Castlevania. It was like very Castlevania to me, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, one of the stories I read was about 2 murderous gargoyles. So it made me think about Castlevania. So just think about it. It's like France, except like with a dash of Castlevania in it, essentially.
Yeah, because there's like vampires there, werewolves, and all, necromancers and all kinds of stuff.
So the Amber family, they were secretly practicing magic, even though it was illegal. And they started studying black magic. Magic that dealt with certain dark elder gods whose worship was forbidden. And then there was a short and deadly war, and they fled through a temporary gateway between dimensions. And then they ended up in Galantry, which is the in the known world in Mystara. Galantry is a country ruled by princes who are all powerful magic users. So they're not like, they respect magic more. It's not illegal. They don't have to hide anymore in this country.
Yeah, it's it is. You cannot be a noble unless you practice magic. I mean, you can be a noble, but you can't be think of it like as a voting member of the council. People do not respect you if you don't use magic.
And then basically it talks about, so yeah, they lived in Galantry for a while, and they became like super powerful, and to the point where like if you were the head of the family, you were probably going to be one of the prince or princesses of Galantry. But like suddenly the entire Amber family and their mansion Castle Amber disappeared.
And you're going to find out why.
Yeah, and it does mention that this family is not part of it's actually not a thing that Clark Ashton Smith created, but it is like based on his stories. So if you read through his stories, you won't find the Amber family, but you will find like thematically where they came from. So the thing about the Amber family is they are powerful, but they are all kind of they don't have a lot of their sanity left, and they don't necessarily like each other. So all of the family kind of treats each other differently. You never know which Amber is going to like another Amber or is going to try to kill them, and they've all kind of lost it in a little way. The way this adventure starts is fairly unique in that I think, actually, I'm just curious, did this predate? So the way this starts out reminded me of Ravenloft, because it essentially talks about like your party is in Galantry for whatever reason, and I guess it doesn't matter where your party's at. They could be anywhere. You could actually insert Castle Amber into most adventures. And they go to sleep after being lost. You make camp, and then you wake up in a different world where it says where the hill... Yeah, so it says where the hills in front of you where you made camp last night. Actually, your bedrolls now lie in the foyer of an ornate mansion. So you just wake up in a random mansion.
Yeah, you wake up in the mansion.
And it says outside, because obviously the first thing your adventurers are going to want to do is like try to escape. And if you make it outside of the mansion, there's a gray mist that surrounds the mansion. And if you go like 30 feet into it, you basically just start dying. Like your character will start dying, and you need to either go back or you will die. So you're stuck there. You can't really do anything.
The mist does not end.
Yeah, and this predates Ravenloft by a few years. So Castle Amber actually like kind of did that
first.
Although granted, Tracy Hickman I think was running Ravenloft like before it was published, so who knows? But yeah, that was happening in this module first. So the next page is pretty funny because it goes into like more of the mist. Next page is page 4. It goes more into the mist. It just talks about like your characters can't get around it no matter what they do, and it talks a bit more about the castle. But it has the Wandering Monster table, and this is a fun table to me because it has the Ambers can show up and like interact with you on this Wandering Monster table. And when you're reading this, I'm used to reading D&D modules which have fantasy bullshit names, and when you look at this, it'll be like number 13, Mary Amber. Number 19, William Amber. That's like a normal person's name.
Yeah.
It's in this module. So I just, for some reason, that makes me laugh.
That's Guillaume, actually. It's Guillaume.
Yes, so the back of the book has a French name. So it has like an English-sounding name for all these characters and a French-sounding name. If you wanted to do that. If you wanted to do the French thing. But it lists in the Wandering Monsters, it lists the English names instead of the French names. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that name is just William in French. So
yeah, they also in the Wandering Monster table they have doppelgangers, which are always fun to deal with. Some living statues, obviously some werewolves because it wouldn't be anything unless it were werewolves. And then a new monster called a Megan. I think that's how you pronounce it, or Megan. I don't know. Could be either. And another one called a Rakasta. That's one of the new ones too, right?
Yeah, that was. I think those were also in Isle of Dread.
And a Thowel Servant, and 3 of the members of the Amber family.
By the way, I'm just going to point out a weird nerdy thing that I noticed, and only I noticed. Maybe only I will notice this, but on die roll 7, you get a Lupin, and then it says like Lupin number 3 through 12. And it makes me think of like Lupin the Third, the anime that came out of the 60s.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, there's no way that was on purpose, but it's like Lupin and then 3. That predates this module by like 20 years. So and Lupin ran for a while and has multiple series, so it's pretty popular. Okay, so on to the West Wing. So the way that the castle is set up is there's different wings. And the first place you start off is the foyer, which is in the West Wing. So you're going to start there. So one thing that I've noticed is it talks about, so you can enter the actual castle yourself, but any animals that you have will refuse to leave the foyer, like anything that was with you. Because I guess they didn't want to be like, oh, you lost all your animals. They just like...
They're just hanging out. Yeah, they're just hanging out, but they're not coming with you.
Yeah, you can't force your pack mule out of this, or no, it says, doesn't it say something about pack mules are okay?
Oh, I don't remember.
It's empty except for the characters and their pack animals. The party members may enter, but the animals will balk at entering the front hallway, and if forced through the doors, will continue to struggle and run away. So I'm pretty sure your pack animals, it specifically calls them out as, they won't follow you.
Yes.
I guess it's just like maybe it's a pain in the ass if people insist on taking their horse through the castle, and it kind of breaks the theme of the castle a little bit.
Right.
So I don't blame him for doing that. Room number 2, the Grand Salon. So Le Salon, I looked this up. It's a masculine noun, typically means a living room, lounge, or sitting room. But it also refers to a formal curated exhibition or fair trade, a social gathering for intellectual discourse. There's like a little bit of an underpinning that has to do with discourse, depending on like if it's used at a certain time in France. So there's some weird shit happening in here.
I love this room. I literally love this room. So Jean-Louis d'Ambleville is basically John Louis is hosting a little fight expedition. So basically you come in and there's this boxer and a boxing ring, and he wants to set up bets on you, one of your characters, to decide who's going to do the boxing match and box this creature, which is also a Megan, which is like a new monster. Specifically developed for hand-to-hand fighting. So obviously you're probably going to pick your fighter. Hopefully you have one, and they're going to duke it out for money.
Yeah, and it has like, so we've had multiple instances of these modules where you could do like a one-on-one boxing match or wrestling match, and it has like all of these like alternate rules, because I don't think basic D&D facilitated this super well. So, like, there's description on how you do that, essentially.
Now, obviously you can go in this room and just become a murder hobo and just try to kill everybody. And so everyone has a stat block and all that stuff. Jean-Louis is a 12th level fighter. So,
yeah, he will
cool.
mess you up.
Yeah. And, they all have, like, the boxer has 24 hit points and can do a bunch of stuff. And there's 2 halberd bearing Megans in there. So if you just go murder hobo, you can do that, or you can have fun and do a boxing match and maybe win some gold.
And obviously, when you go in here, it's pretty obvious that John Louis could control these creatures, these Magans. So they're like magic people, magically constructed people. So it's pretty obvious he could control them. So I think like most parties would realize fighting him is a bad idea.
You also see a bunch of eyes and things floating around. So members of the Amber family are watching the festivities to see who wins, and probably be doing some betting on their own.
Yeah, so they're fighting, and then the other members of the family are using the spell Wizard Eye to watch the match.
I kind of love this as a start because, yeah, it gives you a tone of like, I mean, obviously you could go into the room and there's going to be, people who are like, yeah, no, we just kill. I don't care about this anything. I'm just going to kill everything because that's what we do. But it really gives you the opportunity to like do some role playing, to see that like, what, we just got teleported here and now they want to do a boxing match. Like, what is going on in this place?
Yeah.
And that's that's really what you want is the tone. You want to like, well, what is this? This place is crazy. It's weird and strange. And, these Amber, you can now role play hopefully the first member you see of the Amber family. And he's like, yeah, it's box with me, like what? Great. It's great.
Yeah. And if you win, don't you get like...
Yeah, you have to go 5 rounds. If you go 5 rounds, you get 1,000 gold.
Yeah, he has 20,000 gold in a chest just to like give away his winnings.
Yeah.
And also says the rest of the Amber family will not interfere if you try to kill John Luis. So that's kind of like how they feel about each other.
Yeah, nobody likes each other, but they want to see what each other is doing. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways you get rewarded if you do murder hobo everything. You get 20,000 gold and, he's carrying magic weapons and chainmail and, all that stuff. But it's also fun if you just do the fight. Or maybe you do the fight and then you slaughter him. I don't know, whichever you want to do. But it's great.
This made me really excited to read this module when I got to this intro, because I was like, this is like, I love this, how weird this is. Because it's like it's not what you expect. You're like in this weird mansion and then you go out and there's a combat arena, and the art, it looks like a bald dude punching a guy that kind of looks like Jesus.
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah, with obviously Jean-Louis clapping in the background. Which is great. And another player character going, "Oh man."
So I think like your players can have a lot of fun, like, because eventually I think they'll realize like this guy will destroy us, but we can also like have some fun punching these creatures and trying to win some money. So that's a cool like encounter. And it's not like he's not forcing you to do it. Like he wants you to do it, but he's not gonna force you to do it.
No, but he's gonna be as persuasive as possible. So, he's going to offer a lot of money and, all other stuff to try to kind of get you to play.
Yeah, so what the party is just like, screw this, we're not going to do this. They can just walk out, and that's all there is to that. All right, and then room number 3 is the study. It has the return of the Rakasta, which were in the Isle of Dread, as they're like cat beings that are not related to the Rakshasa. Those are two different things. And they are in the back of this book as well. And the Rakasta basically have turned this study into a lair. And there's a bunch of gold in here, but there's also a silver gate. There's a key that opens the silver gate to Averoigne,
which you're going to need.
Yeah, so you will need this key later.
So this is an interesting piece in that, like, he doesn't, and it doesn't really say, like, what the Rakasta are there. Like, are you going to fight them? Like, if you get into their lair, you could try to talk to them and say, hey, what's this place about? Because, I mean, they could speak, right? You can't remember, right? They can talk.
Yeah, I think they can still talk.
You could have a conversation with them and say, hey, what's going on in this place? And they're like, there's some crazy stuff going on here. Or you just go in there and murder all of them and take the key. So he doesn't really tell you what to do in this room other than, like, there's some stuff you really want in this room.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really say whether or not the Rakasta it doesn't specifically say that they can or can't talk at the back of this module.
Okay.
But they are from the Isle of Dread.
Okay. I couldn't remember from them. Yeah, I don't remember.
It's probably more interesting if they talk, but because that would be up to the DM, just based on this module. Okay, so the next room is the dining room, which is, there's some like weird stuff happening here as well. So you walk into this room and
I specifically remember this room when I actually ran it and played it. We did both. I mostly remember when I was running it. Mostly when I was playing in it. I think when I ran it, the PCs just sort of moved away from here and didn't really, they just saw it and didn't do anything. But when I played, and I didn't, at the time I didn't really, I played it and I didn't know the module. I think I probably must have played it first then ran it. But yeah, I remember all of the food. So
Yeah, so you come into this room, it's a dining room, and it looks like it's untouched and perfect, but like if you concentrate, you can see that the the old version that like everything's dilapidated is still in this room. You can kind of like see through the illusion. And there are 24 transparent like ghosts like guests at this table.
it's basically like you have to decide if you want to participate in the dinner as a guest.
Yeah, so you sit down if you sit down at the table, you have like one turn to figure out if you're going to do that. And then anyone that sat, like the other chairs disappear. Anyone who sits down at the table gets a ghostly servant that comes out to them, and they bring out this, it's like a 7-course meal.
All the different foods, yeah.
So you can eat any, all, or none of the food, and they all do some stuff.
Yeah, it's great. Both positive and negative, which I think is great.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you have to be like, what exactly do you eat? Let me know. But it serves onion soup, amber wine, tossed salad, roast beef, wheat bread, green beans, and mushrooms and wine sauce, as well as red wine, apple strudel, and brandy. And there's an effect on each of these.
Yeah, each of the effect. The really interesting part is that, like, if you some of them where you succeed, you don't get anything, but if you fail, you actually get a benefit.
Yeah, so onion soup is save versus spells. If it's made, nothing happens. If it's not made, you gain 1 to 4 hit points permanently. So actually, if you fail that one, you get
the benefit. Yeah, you get the benefit.
Amber wine will cure any disease or blindness, neutralizes poison currently in the character's system, and restores all lost hit points. That's not even a save. It just happens.
It just happens.
So if you eat the tossed salad, one of the character's abilities picked at random gains 1 to 2 points, and one ability loses 1 to 2 points. And it can affect the same ability, which is really funny.
Yeah.
That reminds me of back to video games in Pokemon. There's natures that each character can have, each Pokemon can have, and it makes one of your stats go down by 10% and another go up by 10%, and they can affect the same thing and cancel each other out. So that's what made me think of here when that happens. The roast beef is not magical. It's just roast beef. You're just eating roast beef.
Yep.
Wheat bread, save versus spells. If the save is made, the character becomes immune to the effects of starvation. If the save is unsuccessful, the character will forever need twice the normal amount of nourishment.
Yeah, that's great.
That's so obnoxious if you fail that. Green beans, these are not magical. They're just normal green beans. Mushrooms in wine sauce. Save versus poison. If the save is made, the character gains +4 on all future saves versus poison. If it is not successful, the character dies of toadstool poisoning.
My character died.
Your character died from the mushroom sauce? I love that.
My character ate the onion soup, the roast beef, the green beans, and the mushrooms and wine sauce. And so, and that was we went in order. So then he had that and he died. I forget what I had to do. I either had to create another character or I had to do something. I don't remember what it was. Maybe they resurrected me. I don't remember.
Is that Monty Python and the Meaning of Life where death comes for them?
It was the salmon mousse. Yeah. They eat the salmon mousse and they all die. But then one of them yells out, "I didn't even have the salmon mousse." So good.
So it's like that scene, but it's like it was the mushroom and wine sauce. So red wine, it causes magical drunkenness for 2 to 12 turns. Apple strudel, save versus spells. If it's failed, the character gains the ability of ESP once per week. If it's made, nothing happens. So some of these you actually want to fail.
Yeah.
Brandy, save versus death. If the save is failed, the character becomes insubstantial and enjoys the ghostly feast forever as another guest. If you make it, nothing happens. So it's like a wild ride of what do you eat? How much of it? Do you try everything? It might be good.
That's what I remember doing. I only tried certain things and, one of them killed me.
I would love to have statistics of how many characters in D&D died to mushrooms and wine sauce.
Yeah, and this is like the dining room. We haven't even gotten very far in the dungeon yet.
Yeah, but there is a small group of people that only ate the roast beef and green beans, and those were that's just normal food.
They're just good because that's all they wanted to eat.
All right, the next room is the Hall of Mirrors. It is a long hallway running east to west that is filled with mirrors, right?
Yeah, and basically the lights go out.
Thousands of 1-inch square mirrors are set into the ceilings and walls, so it's like a giant disco ball essentially. And there's some interesting text here at the very bottom that says, the idea of this encounter is to test the player's inventiveness when their characters are confronted with a sudden loss of sight. Wandering monsters should be rolled for normally. The DM should use discretion when confronting a blinded party with. So that gets more into the like, hey, be nice to your players. Like, use some discretion. Don't just throw like the hardest thing at them because they can't see.
And that is the main hall of this wing. So like, you can go into, if you don't like follow the main hall, you go into room 2, room 3, room 4. But if you were to follow the main hall, the first thing you would encounter would be this.
Essentially, your players will learn every single room that you come into in Castle Amber, something bizarre happens. So they will be starting to expect this after a few rooms.
And basically, like, if they cast a light, it'll light one of the lights in the hall. It's a very interesting sort of like deal. And then, like, as soon as the things get lighted, they suddenly get blinded. Like, once the candles are lit, the hall will be lit as if under a permanent light spell. So it's like, yeah, it's like dark. You cast light, it gets all blinded. They're all blinded for 3 to 18 turns. Wandering monsters could happen, and then eventually it all gets lit up.
Yeah, so like if you use a light or a torch, it's like a spotlight that blinds you, essentially.
Yeah.
So you have to like do it blind. Moving on to the next page, page 7, we have the servants' quarters, and I just want to talk about this because this is the second appearance in this podcast of the Aranea, which are they're from Isle of Dread. They are weird spider people that have a brain in their back, and they're super intelligent, and they're good at casting spells.
Yep.
Which is just such a bizarre creature. I loved them in Isle of Dread, and I'm glad to see them again.
And they're just hanging out here. So on the map, if you look, there's the main hall, and then when you go into here, there's like a small little hallway, and there's 3 doors. One is the linen closet and everything. And then there's 2 servant quarters, and then this is the one in the middle is the one with the Aranea.
Yeah, it has like all the spells that they know, and this used to be the servants' lair, and now they moved in, so I'm wondering if it's like kind of hinted that they ate them or something.
Yeah, maybe.
They're very evil, horrible creatures, so wouldn't be surprised. But I was just happy to see the Aranea back. They're cool. I like them. In room 8, the servants' quarters, I do just want to read this out loud. The floor is, of course, covered with green slime. As a matter of course.
Yeah, and then the ceiling is a black pudding, and the stone platform where the chest is at is gray ooze.
Yeah, so this is the slime room. It says that because the first sentence of the description is most of this room is covered with slimy green goo. So, of course, it's green slime, and it actually says it covers so much of the space that it has 10 hit dice. The green slime has 10 hit dice instead of 2, so it's like 5 times the amount of slime.
Yeah. Because that's what grows in Castle Amber, slimes. That's one of the things that grows really well.
All right, and then in room number 9 is a bedroom, where we meet an individual, Richard Amber, the Lionhearted.
He's just a 10th level fighter.
So you meet Richard the Lionhearted in this room.
He's basically he's a 10th level fighter with plate mail +2 and a sword +3, which is not so bad. But he has a special ability where if he roars, it's like using a wand of fear, which I think is kind of an interesting one. So, and he's also the leader of the Rakasta, so he can probably call the Rakasta into his room if you start fighting him or whatever you do. And remember, these guys are all chaotic, so you get to decide, like, based on whatever the party's doing or how they're interacting with him, if he attacks them or whatever he does. Because it doesn't specifically say, like, he will attack them, but he is chaotic and kind of weird, so who knows?
So room number 10, the master bedroom, I do want to talk about this.
That's great.
This room is great for a couple of reasons. So, okay, so this room, it's a large ornate bedroom, and it says, like, as soon as you investigate the drawn curtains, you will find a creature asleep bundled in the covers. And you'll notice that, like, it's larger than a normal human. It's not a human, but it's in the bed like a human. And the creature is an ogre who has been enchanted to believe that they are Janet Amber. So it's like an ogre dressed in like a robe and, night clothes and like a princess, basically. But it says it's dressed in silken night clothes, which are bursting at the seams. So it's like wearing the wrong size of clothes.
Yeah, it's great.
So that this ogre has been enchanted to think that they're Janet. In actuality, the ogre killed Janet Amber and sleeps in her bed and imitates her, and Janet's body is hidden inside a fireplace chimney against the north wall. I think this is a reference to Edgar Allan Poe's Murders in the Rue Morgue. There's another part of this book that references Edgar Allan Poe, and Murders in the Rue Morgue is the first detective novel, like the first detective story. In like genre fiction, it's considered the first detective story, and the story is about a man investigating a murder of a woman whose body has been shoved into. She's been murdered, and her body was, like, with supernatural strength, shoved into a fireplace. So I think this is a reference to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Very specific place, and she was shoved into a fireplace by a thing with, like, superhuman strength. So this has to be a reference to that. So just look up Murders of the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe. That's probably a reference to this because there's another Poe story that gets referenced later. But the funny thing about this ogre is, like, it will talk to you, and it could like, it doesn't have like the same command of language and etiquette that Janet does, and it will like get mad as it's talking to you, and then eventually attack you.
You have this great role playing moment that hopefully the players don't come in and just murder everything, where you can like, what are you doing here? It's like, it's so great.
I'm Janet Amber. This is Castle Amber. This might be the first character you talk to, depending on...
Yeah.
Well, I guess the first character you talk to is going to be the boxing dude.
Well, they're all in different... Yeah, they're all in different rooms. So, you can... And they're all... the only one that is not accessible is... Oh, is that the one? Wait, hold on. Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah. They're all connected. So you could... When you come into the foyer, you could immediately go left and then go right and see the fighting room, or you can go right into the Great Hall, which we've talked about. And that, that's the whole Hall of Mirrors. But each one of these rooms has a door, except for room 11, which we're going to talk about. So this could be the first room that you go into. Or it could be Richard's room that you first go into, or it could be they're not in order, if that makes sense. Like you basically go into the hall, and it could be any of these rooms that you go into, depending on what everyone decides they want to do. Room 11, there's only a secret door to get into this room.
Yeah, and you probably don't, because there's a bunch of wraiths in here.
Yeah, there's that, and a safe that's trapped and has 5,000 gold.
Doesn't that... Oh, yeah, that's a save versus poison or die as well.
Yep, yay.
So it's probably just ignore that room. Just don't go in that room.
Yeah. I mean, players probably will, but yeah. Oh, there's a secret room. It's got to be good. Wraiths. Oh, I'm 2 levels lower.
And then it does talk about the kitchen, which is like the opposite of the dining room, because it like has hobgoblins preparing the meal that they're going to make for that group of people. Which is kind of funny, because you go into another part of the dungeon that, like, it's like a cause and effect thing that you see a lot in D&D. Like, there's a thing happening in this room. What is causing it? It's this. It's in this other room. So it's like, it kind of like relates. The game design that they want to do for these early D&D modules are like, they want that type of like cause and effect and relation between places. So I actually like that detail.
But they're also ghostly. The hobgoblins are also ghostly, so you can't touch them. But you see them preparing food.
All right, Kyle. Now we're on part 3 on page 8 in the indoor forest. This section is outside of the castle. And it is a, I guess, small garden forest thing that the Ambers have in their estate.
Yeah, it's kind of like a greenhouse, but really big, like a forest-sized greenhouse.
Yeah. Also, it is kept by people who are kind of mad. So
Surprise.
you will find killer trees and the like in their forest. Okay, so the first thing that we notice is that, or at least that I noticed when I'm reading this, is that it talks about paths that go through the garden. It essentially says, like, it incredibly discourages people from going off of the path of,
Right.
like, by one, making it really hard and easy, making it really hard to move, but also making it easy to get lost. And also, it says, to further discourage off-path movement, the Amber family has constructed a number of pit traps with sharpened stakes at the bottom. So they have punji pits in...
Yeah, and don't forget that they use their own manure on those punji sticks. They should have put that in there. That would make more sense to me.
Okay, so...
Yeah, I do want to point out, like, exactly what you said, which is sort of funny, that, like, we have to have all these rules for if you stray off the path. And it's sort of like, you know, it's like, I don't know, always want to point out that, like you do too, like this old school D&D thing of like, we need to make sure the players do the thing we want by adding a bunch of rules, rather than just saying, like, you really don't like going off the path.
Yeah, like...
You could even put like, the Ambers could have a sign that just says, like, hey, don't wander off the path. Caution, do not run off the path. But anyway.
Yeah, like they will eventually reinforce that through... Like, it's being reinforced through the gameplay and not through the actual design of the area that you're in. Because it's a big open space that you can, like, move around in. But, you know, like,
we don't want you to do that.
For instance, if I was designing something and I'm like, okay, I want a dungeon where my players don't stray off of the path, I would probably put it in a cave or, like, in an underground thing or something. So, like, the gameplay has to...
or in a dungeon.
Yeah, exactly. The gameplay has to, at a certain point, the gameplay has to reinforce the design instead of, like, it's not met with the actual setting in this, at least in the forest part.
Yeah, and I know we're kind of nitpicking, but it is kind of funny that the expert set introduces, like, the outdoor setting and all of that stuff, and then, like, we're going to reinforce this sort of, you know, we're going to wander around the path. But, you know, later on, we do get a little bit more, you know, outside gameplay stuff. So.
Well, it's also kind of like a microcosm of this actual adventure, right? Because you can't even leave the house.
True.
Like, if you try to leave the house, it's just like, no, you are literally going to die unless you turn around. So,
right.
I guess it kind of, you know, it fits a little more in this adventure. But yeah, like, definitely, I think designers eventually got better at marring the actual setting with the gameplay that they want.
Right.
Like, I feel like we saw that a lot in Desert of Desolation, where the setting matched, like, what you would expect from the actual mechanics. So we do have a wandering monster list here that has a... So first of all, we have we have a robber fly, so we have a return of giant insects in D&D, which is one of the base pillars holding up D&D is just a giant, like, insect.
And then just giant monsters. Like, is there a giant weasel? You're going to go after, you're going to get attacked by a giant weasel.
Yeah, and a giant rattler snake.
Right.
But also one of the people you could run into is Isadora Amber.
Aw.
So you could also run into one of the Ambers in here.
I have noticed that most of the female Ambers are magic users. None of them seem to be warriors of any type.
Well, even, if I remember correctly, isn't the, like, pugilist guy also, oh, I guess he doesn't have spells. For some reason, I was thinking even the like fighter type still had a bunch of magic.
Yeah, I think doesn't Richard? Well, maybe he doesn't. I don't remember.
I mean, maybe the women in the Amber family are more magically inclined. Who knows?
I do. There is one Amber sort of fighter person who has magic spells as well. I don't think we've met him yet.
And also, like,
but yeah,
a thing that this module kind of reinforces too. Meeting the Ambers is kind of like a coin flip on if they're going to be, like, reasonable or just completely mad or just, like, sociopathic, you know? So your players should be like, would rather like meet the giant hawk or centaur than an Amber, because
for God's sakes, don't be getting an Amber.
Yeah, you don't know if they're going to, like, turn you into a frog or help you, you know?
I have to stand corrected that there is a Mary Amber that is actually a fighter. So you meet her in the first part. You have a chance of meeting her. She's one of the random Ambers you can meet in the Wandering Monster table in the West Wing. But most of them seem to be... also, it's funny because there's Isabel in that one, and this is Isadora. So, okay.
Yeah, I don't expect... It's already hard to remember NPC names.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's like, couldn't you just be like something Desdemona or something? I don't know, whatever.
I also, when I design adventures or I design like my games, I make sure that NPCs never have the same starting letter in their name.
Remember how hard it was in our game when we both had the same?
Oh, yeah.
We had two characters, the first letters were the same. It's like, oh god.
Yeah. So just for context, the level 20 campaign I ran that like went from 1 to 20, we played for like 3 years, I think, 4 years. It was a while.
3.5. Yeah.
There was a character named Nartan and a character named Nineheart, and it was like a constant confusion for me for the entire time, to the point where I was like, every time I run a game, I'm like, no one is allowed to use the same starting letter.
Yeah,
as a character.
You can't have the same the same letter in your name. It's just not acceptable.
I actually think that's pretty good practice in general. So I follow that for my NPCs too. Like if I make a bunch of NPCs, I'll try to make sure they have like very differing names just to help people remember. Because I know I have trouble doing it when I'm a PC. Okay, so there are killer trees, which is a new monster in the back.
I love the first part, like the very first, quote unquote room, because you have to stay on the path. So is the Forest of Doom. It's not just like, haunted forest. No, it's the Forest of Doom. And then, in the Forest of Doom is...
killer trees. I don't remember if killer tree... I know there was a ton of killer plants in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I don't remember if killer trees were in that specifically. I'd have to look that up.
No, I don't think so.
But it's a new monster in the back. That is a theme I'm noticing in these early D&D modules. There are a lot of killer plants. And I can only guess that Strange Tales and all the pulp fiction pulp genre fiction that these designers were reading when they were younger had like killer plants in them.
Yeah, and people getting a Venus flytrap was a big deal in the 80s.
Also, just like narratively, your players killing a killer plant, there's a little bit of baggage when you kill a sentient creature, right? Because you're like, well, did they have kids? Like,
yeah,
did this bugbear that I just decapitated, was it a mother? Like, there's a little bit of that, but not when you're killing a zombie or like a killer tree or something. So,
right,
I think
right.
I think designers use that for D&D as well, where it's like, you know what, I want a monster that you don't even have to think about. Just here's a giant Venus flytrap that eats you, and it's fine if you kill it. You're not going to feel weird.
Yeah, kill that. It's fine. No guilt.
And then as you go, you will hear you will see shadowy forms on the road following you. So, and they don't actually do anything, though. It's just a mechanic to like make you paranoid, essentially.
Yeah, it's sort of like flavor. You're trying to like make people feel like they're in a place that is very doom-filled and gloomy, and it's, think of like the forest at night.
All right, and the main thing that you come up to in this is the room number 15, the Maiden and the Unicorn. So you see an amber-skinned woman with long golden hair sleeping in the middle of the path. A unicorn is sleeping next to her. She is wearing a dress of yellow daffodils, which is a little hint because this woman is actually a gold dragon.
Love it.
It is a very young gold dragon.
Mostly uses spells.
Yeah, and they essentially were also trapped here. Like, they don't know how to get out of the mist, so they just, like, hang out in this garden, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, I guess this is the nicest place we can kind of hang out. So, and I'm a unicorn, and I'll just, there's a unicorn, and I'll just polymorph into a woman, and we'll just play out this trope.
Yeah, and I'm also assuming, because there's like a lot of references to like literature. I feel like this has to be some fairy tale that I'm not, like, I know it's a pretty tropey image, but there has to be some sort of like fairy tale or something, because the next thing it references is a fairy tale. So
yeah, for sure.
So it's kind of funny. You're in the Castle Amber, and then you run into like a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, and then you run into like all these fairy tale references. So you go into like murder, from a murder thing to this, which
is great. I don't want to give anybody the impression that I actually like don't like this, or that you don't like this. I think this is actually really fun.
This is really cool. It's I actually really like the image of like you're dealing with these killer plants, and then you see like a maiden sleeping on a unicorn, and you're just like, I know that this is not what it seems, because
Right.
Like this entire module is like making you second guess everything that you see, because these people are they're mad, but they're also capable of like making things that seem one way but are actually another thing.
Right. And it's actually, and can be a really fun thing, because this is the only, it's one of the only lawful creatures in this whole adventure. So, you can make friends with it, but, you're going to be like super paranoid, especially with the thing before it saying like the spores are super creepy and, what am I going to do? This, you kind of set this up and then suddenly you see a maiden and a unicorn. You're like, obviously this is not what it seems. Do I murder it?
Yeah, so it could actually be a helpful ally. At least like if you talk to them, they could give you some context into what's going on that they can't escape. And also they could use they have some spells they could probably help you out with, like Dispel Magic, if you make them into an ally. So it would for sure be
not sure you really want them following you around, but it doesn't explicitly say that, they won't walk around and help you, but you can kind of decide. Like this is also a way if you think your party is like super underpowered.
Right. You also would still, I suppose you would still get your reaction check or whatever. So it depends on like what the charisma is in your group and like what your DM rolls and stuff. But since it's a lawful creature,
yeah, no one does that.
if it is,
Kyle. We don't do that, and we don't do that, and this is not 5th edition or 4th edition or even 3.5. This is like how y'all feeling about this thing.
Well,
that's how we used to play.
The core rules state that there is a reaction check. It's just how if people actually do it.
Oh, that's
the
true.
2d6 reaction check. I mean,
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So whether or not people were actually doing it, we can say it's hard to say, but the rules say that you are supposed to have a reaction check modified by, I think, the highest constitution in the group. It's a 2d6. You know what? I'm gonna cut in what the reaction check actually is.
Stop time.
Hey everyone, editing Kyle here from the future. Just wanted to say I looked up reaction rolls, and in the basic rule book, it does give you an option for the DM to do that if they don't know how the monster is going to react. It's essentially says like, hey, things like zombies are going to try to attack, but sometimes if you don't know what something's going to do, you can roll on the reaction table. The reaction table is 2d6. So 2 would be an immediate attack, 3 to 5 is hostile, possible attack, 6 to 8 is uncertain, the monster is confused, 9 to 11 is no attack, the monster leaves or considers offers, and 12 is enthusiastic friendship. So basically, it says you could use that if you need to. It's not really like optional rule or anything. In the episode, I kind of said, hey, you get that, because I thought that you automatically get it, but no, it's just kind of optional. The DM could use it if they want. Additionally, I also said that you would modify it by constitution, and I meant charisma, and that's not how it works in basic D&D. That's how it works in Shadowdark, which is an awesome game that you should look up and play because it's great. But anyways, back to the show. Thanks.
Time begins to move.
But yeah, it's a lawful creature, so even if you get a bad reaction check or something, it's probably not going to murder you. It's probably just going to be like, get away and let me continue sleeping in my fairy tale-esque Renaissance painting
over this chest of gold.
But it's an interesting encounter. I do
yeah,
I do like the placement of the gold dragon here. Okay, so we also deal with, so on page 9 there is room number 16, the Billy Goat's Woe, which is like just a reference to Billy Goat's Gruff, of just a bunch of billy goats and a troll under a bridge. It's just a straight reference to that.
Right.
And actually, it's pretty funny because you see a humanoid. So as you're approaching, you see a humanoid with the horns of a billy goat, and it says, "Please don't eat me, Mr. Troll. My brothers who are right behind me are much bigger and fatter than I am," to the troll under the bridge. And then the troll says, "All right, you can pass, and I'll wait for your brothers." So he kind of like makes it seem like you're there to be eaten.
You're the brother. And it says, the troll will attack you if you don't otherwise trick it. And you could probably do the same thing because I think that's the fairy tale, right? So that you could just go up there and say, no, I'm really small and puny. Wait for my brothers,
Yeah. It allows, I mean, the PCs could just murder it, but it is a troll, so it could be pretty resilient depending on what your party has, If you don't have any fire, it might be
Right.
tough. But yeah, this is also it's just another interesting, like the encounters thus far are interesting people to talk to that you can just start killing them, but it gives you the option to roleplay and talk to stuff and like be smart, I guess. The next room, I don't think I'm going to talk about the Crocs.
Yeah, you can just pass it.
I do want to talk about the Fountain of...
I mean, the title, we have to talk about the Fountain of Death because it's called the Fountain of Death. I mean, Jesus.
The Fountain of Death makes me laugh only because after the box text, this is the only sentence. The gargoyles this is the first two sentences. The gargoyles are only stone statues. The real danger lies hidden. The fountain is the lair of a giant amoeba, which is an HD 15 amoeba.
Yeah, it's quite a big amoeba.
Granted, it doesn't have much armor because it's just cytoplasm? No. Ectoplasm is not real. That's a made-up thing.
Yeah. And the lure of the players in the fountain, there is like the base of the statues, there's a lid of a metal chest, and the lid is padlocked. So the idea is like, okay, yeah, they want to lure you into the pool. And when you get into the pool, the amoeba attacks you.
Yeah, and inside the chest, there is also another silver key.
Yeah, which you kind of want. Fountain of Death.
But I do love just, there's a giant, in this like a little fairy tale land, little like fairy tale section of the castle, there's a giant amoeba, which is...
There's a giant amoeba.
You should be able to see all of the giant, you should be able to see the giant mitochondria, the giant, whatever else is in the cell. It's been a while since 8th grade biology, but and then you meet some squirrels that can turn acorns into gold by touching them, which is obviously a reference to King Midas.
Because they're King Midas'
acorns. King Midas' acorns. The squirrels turn acorns into gold because they have to eat golden acorns to survive.
Why? Who cares?
No, but you could only assume that the PCs meet these squirrels and try to kidnap them and make some sort of conveyor line of making gold.
Right. They're hey, can we just keep on giving the squirrels acorns? Can we go find acorns? Okay, I'm going to take the squirrel out of here, and then obviously they have rules that the squirrel eats, it dies. So
yeah, and if you mess with the squirrels, it does trigger a counterattack from the wild hunt.
Yes.
Which, now that I think about it, the wild hunt was that picture that we talked about at the beginning, where we were like, right. I don't remember this part being in the module. That was actually the wild hunt, now that I think about it.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I totally forgot about this part. So the wild hunt, I know, it's like a fairy tale thing. And I know that from The Witcher, because The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, they use that in The Witcher 3. And I think it's some sort of Irish Gaelic fairy tale myth thing, but that is being used here. Or at least the name is being used.
Yes, there is. And I used to know that story, and I don't remember it anymore, but it was about if you do something, the wild hunt finds you, and I'd have to look it up. I should have. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, there is an actual story about it.
Yeah, we could or it's a reference to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which came out in 2015.
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe the author was prescient and knew that was coming out in 30 years.
So I have a bit of an interesting one here. So there's these monsters called lupins, and they're new monsters for Castle Amber. And there's a Monty Python skit about the flower lupin, and this guy is stopping carriages in say, I don't know, 1800s or something, and stealing flowers, stealing lupins specifically because they're worth so much money, as apparently in this Monty Python skit. So I don't know why, as soon as I hear lupins, that's the whole thing I think of as flowers that are valuable to only Monty Python world. So anyway, that's a thing.
That's what your brain conjures when you read
That's where my brain goes. Yeah, the flower lupin. I happen to know that this is the Lupin Express. Oh, damn. And a bunch. Anyway, okay, so anyone who's a Monty Python fan might remember all that.
Yeah, so the Wild Hunt, they're a group that patrol the indoor forest. They ride, the two lupins that are in that group ride direwolves. And there's a bunch of like one of the two
Rakasta,
the two
well.
Rakasta ride saber-tooth tigers,
Mhm.
and they are led by Andrew David Amber, which once again is just a normal person's name.
Yep.
But
Although, you could use the French as André David d'Almerville.
I refuse.
Yeah, I know.
So he's been magically altered. So he doesn't look like a human. He has the head of a large black goat, and his body is covered with black shaggy hair. His eyes glow red, and though he has hands instead of human feet, he has goat hooves. And he rides a giant elk. So it's probably like, I don't think that was in the picture at the front, but the guy was riding an elk in the beginning. The art at the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely supposed to be that, but
maybe before he was transformed?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Or maybe like the art direction, like he was told how to draw Andrew David Amber, and then it was updated later to, it's fine.
Yeah, who knows? But I think the picture at the front is more cooler than this actual monster. It would be more cool if it was actually that picture, in my opinion.
But I mean, it is another group of people to, like, I don't, it looks like, my guess here is the intent is not for them to, like, kill you, because they are like all lawful. It's just if you start causing problems in the forest, they probably will shake you down and force you to stop.
Well, actually, they're neutral, and then David Amber David is he's chaotic.
Oh, okay. So only the Lupins are lawful. The Lupin are lawful, and the other ones are neutral.
Rakastas are neutral, and and then the one who leads them is chaotic. So, I mean, there's obviously kind of a fun little thing you could do here where they all have different alignments that are sort of counter to what the leader is. So, could be kind of an interesting thing that if, your players, you're sort of struggling, because this could be a really tough encounter. You could have a very interesting little role play experience here.
Right, and maybe you could convince the dragon to help you if you really have to fight these people.
Yeah, and you could also talk to the Lupins and say, hey, we didn't mean to hurt the squirrels or whatever's going on there.
Yeah, so it specifically says that Andrew David also designed this forest, so part of like the weirdness of, putting out these traps and killer plants is him protecting what he's designed.
Yeah.
There is another room, I just want to quickly talk about it, that essentially, like, it just says, when you look at the plants, you realize that they're all following you, and they all have faces on them. And it's actually, like, the Ambers, once again, using illusion magic and the wizard eye spell to, like, spy on you.
Yeah, because they're bored and want to know what you're doing.
Okay, speaking of killer plants, in room 22, page 10, we have the Flowers of Evil.
Can I say it?
Do it.
The Flowers of Evil.
So you run into some flowers, and you're like, oh, those are pretty flowers, but they're actually amber lotus flowers.
And they make you fall asleep.
And there are 20 of them. And the thing about them putting you to sleep is you have a 50% chance of falling off the path. And if you fall off the path, there's grab grass. It is incredibly hard not to say crabgrass.
Grab ass.
Yeah, grab ass. Grab grass on either side of the path that will grab you.
Yes. And then to top it all off, so the pollen makes you fall asleep. The grab ass, grabs you. And then, you're supposed to say it, Kyle.
The vampiric roses?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the vampiric roses drain you dry.
Oh, yeah. So victims are injected with a hypnotic anesthetic and must save their spells or lose all will to fight, allowing the vampire rosebush to automatically drain 1d8 points of blood per round.
And it has a great illustration of the whole thing happening to this poor woman.
Which is like the second art that we have seen of plants devouring people, because that was in Expedition to the Barrier Peaks as well.
Yes.
Man, stay away from giant bugs and plants in early D&D. Just
they're all out to get you.
Take your Monsanto weed killer with you.
Yeah, the next room is the bloodstained arch, and so there's in fact a bloodstained arch, and it's all about what the all the terrible things that the Amber family has done, and it drips blood because of it. It's another one of those trick things where if you save, nothing happens, but if you don't save, you get a benefit. So you get a 1d6 hit or 1d6 additional hit for damage and to hit rolls.
So I guess the design, it feels like the designer is trying to like invert things automatic, like everything in the Amber house, you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's even inverting like the save mechanic and being like, well, you actually kind of don't want to save.
Right. You want to fail that save, and you didn't know you didn't want to fail that save. So looking at the map, the next part we talk about is the chapel. So if you basically, there's a path through the forest. If you take the forest, there's, at some point in time, you're going to look, and there's going to be to the north, there's going to be double doors, and that goes into the chapel. But if you continue along the path, it's going to go to the east wing. So some of the encounters that we just talked about, eventually you're probably going to want to go to the east wing and you would find those encounters. But if you make a detour and just go to the chapel first, a couple of those encounters aren't going to happen. Looks like the wild hunt will happen. And then if after the wild hunt, if you go north, you're going to do the chapel. And then if you turned and kept going on the path, you would go to the east wing.
Right. And once again, we're kind of talking about this in the order of the book and not necessarily the order the players might run into stuff.
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to point that out, that it's like, oh, we're all just going to follow all these things, but it's just sort of keen to know, I guess.
All right. Speaking of inverting expectations, in the main chapel, so there's 24 marble statues inside of the main chapel that are like the Amber. They're either like they're members of the Amber family, like they might be descendants or like current members. But the weird thing about these statues is there's a 1 in 6 chance that they will come to life if you're within 10 feet of them. And they don't actually attack, but they do randomly want to come up and touch you to bestow either on a d6, it's going to be on a 1, it's a bless, on 2, it's a curse, on 3, it's turn to stone, on 4, it's bestow magical gift, on 5, raise an attribute of one individual 1 point, 6, cause any disease. And the blessing is that you get a +1 to all saving throws. Damage to hit, number needed to hit and damage done. And it gives you some examples too of like some curses, like slowing your movement, changing your alignment, growing extra limbs, etc. So this turns into a situation where like a player may walk up to a statue, it may come to life, and then touch them and give them a magic gift. And then everyone's like, oh, I want to be touched by the statue too. And they go up to another statue and it turns them to stone.
Yeah, it's great.
So it's kind of like this, the design of this adventure is like, you just never know what to expect from anything. Like any blessing might as well be a curse as well. Given on the whims of the Amber family.
And one of them is like, putting your attribute up by 1 is that's pretty boss. Like that's a pretty nice advantage. So like if you really wanted to mess with people, you would do that first or give them a magic item, just no matter what. And then that way like, oh, this is great. And then you just start rolling randomly what happens. And then, everyone's like, this place sucks, but it's great. I don't know what to do.
Right. And I think raising your attribute is actually like fairly rare. Like there's not, as far as I'm aware, there's not that many things that I've seen in the book that actually do that. Like it's fairly rare. And then you could get to the dungeon, which is part 6, from this room as well. But it also there's some interesting note here where it says, so there's a trapdoor that goes to the dungeon, but it's saying like, basically, if you're the DM, you should ignore the trapdoor until the party has explored this area of the mansion. So it's saying like, hey, if you think they haven't explored Castle Amber enough, just remove this trapdoor. Like don't even bother putting that in here. Okay. So the next thing that we get to is buried alive. So you could hear the faint scratching and I guess screaming of a woman who is buried, of Madeline Amber, who is buried beneath the chapel.
Buried by her brother, Charles Amber.
Yes. Which, this is an obvious reference to The Fall of the House of Usher by, by Edgar Allan Poe. So it's like another reference to Edgar Allan Poe. So he's just like, not only is this like based off of literature in a way, but there's just a lot of like references to stuff in here, which like, you know, obviously he's purposely doing.
She is an 8th level fighter. If you rescue her, she will help you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she obviously hates her brother who buried her, and will help you. Basically, she will go berserk when she meets him, and will help you try to kill him if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and help you in all the other rooms and everywhere else, as long as you don't get to that room where he's at.
And there's another room with a silver key here, so the silver key will be used later to open a gate. And you're going to need to find, I don't remember if it's all of them or a high amount of them. I don't remember.
Yeah, I gotta look through it again. But yeah, you know, you need this silver keys to open up the silver gate, and, so that you can do the next dungeon part. So you might have to explore more of the rest of the castle before you go into the dungeon, quote unquote dungeon.
So the reliquary, there's another room 29. I just want to talk about this real quick. The reliquary storage. There's like different holes that you can reach in to find stuff. And hole number 1 is killer bees. So more giant insects that kill you in D&D. And
again,
hole number 4
insects.
is the nest of a cockatrice. So,
yeah.
So you will not be, there's not much benefit to poking your hands in these holes here.
Right. You might get some water. Cool. Or you might get 1,000 gold pieces. So
true. I guess the benefit is that you get 1,000 gold pieces.
Yeah, if you do all of them, but you also get killer bees and a cockatrice.
Yeah, there is a 1 in 6 chance that you will beat the Wu-Tang Clan, and a 1 in 6 chance that you will be petrified. Okay, so Chapel Library. So this is where Charles Amber is, and Charles Amber buried Madeline Amber, and she will go berserk insane if she sees him and try to kill him. But Charles Amber's thing is he's extremely sensitive to any sensation that is, any sound that is above a whisper, any light brighter than shadows, anything but the most bland taste or normal smells, or being touched by anything other than silk clothing. So he has some sensitivity problems.
Charles is not insane, which is like kind of insane because he doesn't want to have any anything, like any sensory things in his life, but yeah, sure.
I mean, like, a little bit of that is normal, but like everything is, I think that there's like, it doesn't, the text doesn't specifically say this, but I think that he is like bewitched or has some sort of magic thing going on, like the rest of the Embers. It doesn't explicitly say like why, but obviously like he's going to attack you when you know, he's not going to be happy when you open the door and you have torches and, you know, you smell like adventurers and, you know, etc.
And he's going to be especially not happy if Madeline Amber is with you because she goes crazy, obviously.
So, and yeah, that is automatically going to happen. So if Madeline Amber is with you, she will try to kill him. And if she is not with you, it basically says, like, while you're in this room, you will hear a cracking boom, and shortly she'll burst into the room from digging herself out of her grave and then, like, try to kill him.
Yes. And there's a great illustration of her trying to strangle a guy in silk robes, which is great.
Yeah, and this, I just want to talk about this art, because this art, the way that she looks like so ghastly, like, this art would have scared me as a kid. Like, she does really look horrifying. Like, she just dug herself out of a grave, essentially.
I mean, when I first looked at this when I was a kid, I thought for sure that was like a wight or a wraith or something.
But yeah, it's just a normal...
Well, an 8th level fighter, right?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, it's...
With a sword.
When I say normal person, I mean living person. And it has Charles' spells here. Yeah, so basically, like, you're going to have an encounter, and you're going to come, you're gonna come up like one way or the other with this. I'm guessing if you beat Madeline Amber, like if you dig her out first, she's gonna tell you what happened, and you're probably gonna be on her side.
I guess. I mean, it's also, she was in this weird catatonic state because of a spell or something. So, yeah, it's sort of an interesting thing. So, like, if you didn't rescue her, and he's like, oh, yeah, I buried her, and I think I hear her, and I think I did the wrong thing, and then she bursts into the room, maybe like, okay, well, we'll take his side. It's an interesting one to, like, think of. But they'll duke it out, so maybe the players just get popcorn and watch.
Yeah, just watch what happens, and then side yourself with the alive, whoever's alive.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you're just trying, the adventurers are trying to get out of here. So there's that. There's that in to take into account.
I also, I guess we should say something because obviously you're meeting more and more Ambers, and if you're doing a role play part of this, you would be asking them if they're amenable to being asked, like, how do you get out of here? Right? Like, how are you getting out of here? And they're all going to say, like, we're trapped here too. Like, we can't get out. So I think that's something to point out, that it's like, if you're doing sort of a role play piece of this, even if they, stop to talk to any of the Ambers, because, at this point, Charles might actually want to talk to you. Like, he might actually talk to you. He's going to say, and you ask him, like, how the hell do we get out of here? He's going to be like, I have no idea. I'm trapped here too.
Right. Like, you're not necessarily, even if the Embers like do talk to you, you're probably not going to get a straight answer. Even the more like well-adjusted ones that are not currently afflicted by some sort of madness are probably not going to give you too much help. Or at the very least, they're going to tell you, like, if you want to be a more helpful DM, you could tell them, like, hey, you should find all of the silver keys for the gate. Like, if you as a DM, if you know your players need like a goal, like some.
Right.
I've noticed, like, running games that some groups are more like that. Like, some groups are just fine with walking around, stumbling into rooms and figuring stuff out, and others are like, you know what, give me a specific goal. Okay, so that's all. But obviously, like, this is a reference to the fall of the House of Usher, which, like, I don't remember all the details of that story, but I do think there's someone murders someone else, like a family member, and then at the end of the story, she breaks into the room and basically kills him, or it's implied. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've read Poe, but that's like one of his more famous stories. But yeah, I do really love that art. The way that they draw her is just so good. Okay, so on page 12, I just want to talk about the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yeah, Simon. Good old Simon.
So first of all, I just read that and I was like, well, I know they use that word in Doctor Strange, so I was like, what does that actually mean? And I did look it up. So Sanctum Sanctorum is a translation of a Hebrew word that means holy. It's a Latin phrase that is a translation of a Hebrew word that means holy, the Holy of Holies.
Oh,
so there is like some precedent of that being. It's not just like a thing Marvel made up. That was my thing.
Right.
I just assumed it was a bullshit thing that Doctor Strange made up, but it is actually have some precedent in being used in like churches and stuff. And yeah, so this is a strange room because you open it and there is a person in golden plate mail that has amber robes and a cross of carved amber around his neck, praying at a golden altar. As soon as the door opens, he turns and says, "May I help you?" This is Simon,
a level 14 cleric.
And as you could guess, he has no intention of helping you whatsoever, even though he is covered in gold and seems to be a pious man.
He's trying to gain your trust, be cunning and sneaky, and then at the last moment, try to kill you. He also has his 5th level spell. One of his 5th level spells is Finger of Death. So
I did notice
cool.
that, yeah. And I did look that up. Finger of Death in this edition of the game just kills you. You make a save, and if you fail it, you die. But it's so we have mentioned before NPCs betraying you in dungeons. Like, you could just assume in a Gary Gygax adventure, if you run into someone, they're going to backstab you. That's like a really common thing in these adventures, right?
Right.
But it doesn't come out of left field here because the Ambers that you have met are all mostly untrustworthy, or at the very least will change their minds in a whim. So I feel like if the players play this and they open a door and it's like a man in golden armor praying at a golden statue, it's like pretty obvious that the adventure's like, you shouldn't trust this guy.
You probably should be trusting here. Every amber seems to be chaotic and weird and kind of doesn't want anyone to live.
So also another funny thing about him is he has a quest spell, which, so quest is a spell in the, I looked up what this does. It basically, you are inflicted with a quest and you lose 1 from your saving throw dice per day that you don't do that quest. It's kind of like, it's kind of like up to the DM. So if I throw a quest on you and it's like, go find the magic sword, and you are generally trying to find the magic sword, cool. But if you're like not trying to find it, your saves will go down 1 per day that you don't do it. And the quest that he gives you is to, to find the tomb of Stephen Amber, which is going to be a thing later.
Yeah, which is something you want to do. And it's just like, I mean, spoiler alert, that is the whole point of this module.
Yeah. So he inflicts you with focusing on the adventure. That's the thing he punishes you with.
He punishes you with a thing that you really want.
The thing a D&D player hates most is being cursed with having to focus on the actual adventure.
Yeah, how dare you?
How dare you make me do this? So that's like a fun encounter, and if you decide to murder him, he's a fairly difficult fight. Like he's got some pretty nasty spells.
Yeah, he's going to be tough.
I also am very curious because he's a cleric, and they're from Averoigne, which is like French, like right. Fantasy alternate reality France. So like, is he a cleric of like the Christian god?
Yeah,
doesn't really talk about that, but
yeah, and the whole, I mean, they establish this later that in the kingdom, there's very little clerics. There's none because they get murdered. So, not really sure. I mean, obviously, we haven't established that yet because this is the very first. It's 1980, whatever.
Yeah, and they don't get into whenever we talk about clerics. It doesn't really talk about like this is a life cleric like it would in like current editions of the game.
No, so you do sort of wonder who he's worshiping. I guess it's Satan, actually, at this point. He's just straight up Satan.
You know, it would actually thematically fit that it's Satan because the stories that we read, all of the, at least the Clark Ashton Smith stories that I wrote, he talks about Satan a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of satanic stuff in there.
There's a lot of like, yeah.
He makes a very simple distinction between God and the devil.
Yeah.
And, people that are using spells and doing these things are all worshiping the devil. So, you can just have them worship the devil. It's fine.
So therefore, Simon Amber is worshiping Satan, and that's where he gets his finger of death spell. We can only assume that. But yeah, he does talk about in his stories, he at least the ones I read, he describes a lot of things as satanic. Like he actually uses the word satanic.
Yep. I think he also, like when you said that he was just doing that for the money in some ways, it sort of makes sense that if you want to make it very simple in your audience to like hate something, most people are going to be Christians and reading that and they're going to go, oh yeah, no, I know that he's evil and it's satanic and it's very black and white.
I also, I would say that, and I would also say that magazine was probably trying to be as edgy as possible. And there were people that read that magazine that was like an outlet for them, where they were like, oh my God, I'm reading this, like, this magazine's talking about Satan. I shouldn't be reading this. I'm going to keep reading it. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of that allure in those types of stories.
Magazines or short stories in the form of drugs. I'm bad.
It's kind of like, I forget what comedian it was. It was someone on Harbin Quest that was like, he was like, the reason I liked magic cards is because it felt like a thing I wasn't supposed to be looking at. Like it was a little secret. Like I was worshiping the devil or something. So I think there's an aspect of that to those Strange Tales stories for sure. All right, this is the room with. Gee, this is such a weird. The next room is so. Oh, I do want to talk about the choir. This room I love.
Yeah, the choir's great.
So there's the choir loft, which is filled, and this is, I haven't really seen anything like this in D&D before, so I want to lift this and use it. So there's a choir loft. There's 88 statues that are victims of the Amber family who have been petrified, and if you they all will magically animate and will sing one note if you press
There's an organ. There's keyboard and organ, yeah.
So there's an organ that is hooked up to petrified people, and if you press a button on the organ, it connects to one of the statues and makes them sing a note, which is like it's delightfully messed up. I love it.
Yeah, delightfully evil. We're going to petrify you, turn you to stone, and now you're my organ. Just a single note of the organ, though. We have to have 88 of you.
You would want to. I can't sing, and I can't especially right now. So I would be one of the worst people to petrify.
Right. They just kill you.
Yeah, they would just...
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, just kill me. But anyways, that room is really cool. And, that type of room, I think, is, why this... that is an example of why this module is so well remembered. It's just, really cool stuff like that. This next room... There's a lot going on in this next room. So this is the throne room in the East Wing. So we're on the East Wing now. So we're out of the... I almost said chantry. We're out of the chapel.
So we've gone back into the forest to get to the East Wing.
Yeah, so this is a whole other wing of the mansion. So in the throne room, there are a bunch of skeletons that are standing in rigid poses. Like there's some that are bowing, there's some that are gossiping. It looks like they are frozen in a specific moment in time. And it is due to a curse from one of the Ambers who was murdered by his brother. And then the princess, who is a 13th level magic user, knew that this was going to happen. And seconds before the devastation struck, she put herself in a magic jar inside of the throne.
So which is brilliant, obviously. And it's going to be great. I mean, having read Mark of Amber and then the whole Glantry Gazetteer thing, you find out that Stephen Amber is obviously super powerful and created this whole curse, and part of it had to do with they weave it into the whole part of why Glantry is the way it is, which is kind of cool. They sort of expound on it in this sort of cool way. So it basically he cursed his whole family and the mansion, that if they killed him, this would happen.
Interesting. So in the actual text of Castle Amber, this is kind of just a thing that happened in the past, but in Mark of Amber, they kind of expand upon that.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But they say it's a curse that he created, and that is all the true, the thing, but they make it even more of a thing. And basically, she figured out that this was going to happen and magic jarred her into the throne.
Yeah, I also love that it says she managed to save herself by magic jarring into her throne. Just the idea that you could use magic jarring as a phrase is really funny to me.
Yeah.
But she has stuck inside of the throne, and she's kind of evil now because she's basically lost her mind from being disembodied from her body for so long.
Well, she was already evil because she also plotted to kill her brother and all of that stuff. So she's just evil, and now she's just gotten more evil.
Yeah, so she's evil, but now she is insane.
Insane and evil.
It literally says, Princess Catherine is both evil and hopelessly insane due to her disembodied ordeal.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you get close enough to the throne, she will try to possess your body. Any PC's body that gets close to the throne. Because obviously they're going to probably want to walk in here and be like, what the hell happened? Because obviously there's something going on.
And the best part is that this is almost assuredly going to happen. So it's 50% the first round, and then it becomes 60%, then 70%, then 80%, then 90%, then 100%.
Yeah, and she can cast her own spells when she possesses your body. So
right. She
could possess the body of the rogue, and then all of a sudden she's polymorphing people and stuff. Yeah,
and Death Spell has the Death Spell. And Animate Dead, so she can animate all of her relatives and servants and turn them into fighters for her,
One thing that I'm curious about with rooms like this, compared to running newer versions of D&D, sometimes we run into rooms like this where there's something really cool going on, and I wonder if the PCs have the ability to figure out what happened here. Because in current RPGs, or at least in current D&D, you have skills and stuff to figure that out. In this, you would have to your players would have to parse that together. And I don't know if there's like a way to do that unless you talk to Catherine and she tells you.
Right, and she's insane, so who knows if she would. Although, you could probably figure out a way that she starts just yelling out all sorts of weird clues. So you could do that. But yeah, for the most part, like, how are you going to figure out that this is what happened?
And maybe at this time, there's less of an expectation to find out what happened than there is now, because we are all like, everyone around in 2026 has like wiki brain, where it's like, oh, I could just go look up what happened. And maybe it's important that they just never get the answer. I guess the DM could be nice and tell them what's happening, but it's a different design entirely when, like, I guess I'm talking about that from the assumption that the players should be able to figure out what happened instead of, maybe that's because I have 2026 wiki brain.
Right. And like, yeah, and I do want to point out, like, this whole thing of this coronation and basically killing Stephen Amber is the reason why Castle Amber is in the way it is. And he doesn't say that in here, but like when you go on to read other stuff, that's basically what happened. Like what, this whole thing, what they did in killing Stephen Amber and then trying to crown him as the next, him being the key, do they say who? Oh, Henry, yeah. So when they try to crown Henry, that's when all the devastation happens, and then suddenly Castle Amber goes into the state.
Which is, this is like, I like that retcon just because I think this is like a good, like, this is an interesting thread to pull on out of all of the stuff that happened in here.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to point it out, because I think it's really kind of fascinating that later on they were like, okay, so how can we make this sort of a bigger thing? And so they pull that piece out of it. And then it also, like, I don't know how much we want to talk about it, but basically like that, there's a whole thing about Glantry and the way that it is that, makes it the way that Stephen is. So then this is what happens. So it's pretty cool.
And another thing I want to point out is that she has access to Dimension Door. So she doesn't have to fight you. When she takes over someone's body, she can just be like, later, and just like Dimension Door somewhere, and you're going to lose that character. And that's actually kind of an interesting thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like she could sit there and polymorph, cast Death Spell. I'm not sure what Contact Higher Plane does. I'd have to look that up. But, she can cast an Invisible Stalker. Death Spell, Invisible Stalker, Dimension Door.
Yeah. So and she can also, it's Invisible Stalker, so she could possess your body, Dimension Door away, and then make Invisible Stalkers to come kill you. And we'll show up 8 rounds later or whatever. So, pretty interesting. I don't know how I would use this because there's like a lot of potential. Like if you get possessed, you could take the PC aside and tell them they're possessed, or you could wait. You could say that she's like waiting to do something, or you could just have her go away and that character's gone.
Yeah.
And a good thing about this adventure, if someone loses a character, the next character is just a random Amber that they go into the next room and there's like, oh, I'm John Amber. How are you doing?
Yep. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I'll totally join your party. I'm the only one of the Ambers that's not chaotic or, whatever.
I'm the only reasonable Amber, and I will join you on your adventure. That's at least what I would do if I was running this.
Right.
By the end of the adventure, it's like the ship of Theseus, where the party is eventually replaced by sane Ambers because they've all died.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a fun room. I really like that. I really like the throne room. Speaking of fun rooms, the next room, 35, on page 13, the ballroom. There's a lot happening in here as well. Essentially, the players walk in here, and you notice swinging from a large chandelier in the center of the room is a small, hairy, misshapen figure dressed in the clothing of a court jester. He holds the ends of 3 long chains. The chains are connected to the iron collars around the necks of 3 white furred apes who are standing on the floor. What?
Exactly.
So I feel like, one, I did some Googling on this because I was like, this has to be a reference to like some French fairy tale or something that I don't know. Because it's saying the jester is... the figure in the jester's clothing is Little Ape.
Right. Petit Singe.
Who used to be the court jester of the Ambers, and then He was called Little Ape because he was small, stooped, and his overly long arms were hairy.
He got teased by the Ambers, especially three of the Ambers. They all teased him, but there's three that taunted him the most. And he learned, because the Ambers are magical, he learned Polymorph Other and Charm Monster. And so then he basically took revenge against the three of them and taunted them and turned them into apes and then charmed them. So they do whatever he wants.
And then it says that Stephen Amber was so amused by like the pettiness of this revenge that he made the polymorph and charm spells permanent. So the Amber family is interesting.
Yes. And Stephen decided, hey, everyone wants to kill you, but I'm going to have a better punishment. I'm going to geese you so you can't ever leave the ballroom or you'll die. So, just like, okay. And then he has a bag of unending nourishment and a bunch of potions of longevity.
Yeah, so he basically can survive forever, and he has a bag that will just constantly give him food and water.
So in the greater Mark of Amber thing,
oh my god, did they reference this?
They do, and basically, like Little Ape, the Jester is the thing that basically like connects all of the stuff because he's the one that like loves Stephen Amber the most. So yeah, there's a whole thing with that. So it's really cool. I think they actually in each one of these pieces. But anyway,
that's interesting. So Little Ape, he basically hates the Ambers. He will only attack if he mistakes someone for an Amber. So like if you stole some clothes or something and you're trying to hide as one of the Ambers.
Yeah, like that golden plate mail that the cleric had. If somebody's wearing that, he's going to be not happy about that.
Also, I just want to say this references reaction rolls. It says, otherwise the GM should roll Little Ape's reaction to the party normally using the system suggestion in D&D basic rules.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I don't know, because like I have played basic D&D at this point, and I've played like a bunch of OSR games, like, and I don't think the DMs I've played with do reaction rolls, so you're kind of supposed to, but
yeah,
who knows? I mean, it feels... I probably would just to make charisma not a dumb stat, because, you know, it actually will help you to have someone with high charisma, but yeah, it does reference the reaction rolls here, so that should be happening every time you meet someone. But yeah, this is also, I think a central theme of Castle Amber is opening a door and being like, what the hell?
Yeah, what just happened? What is going on here?
When you open a door, you just don't know what you're going to run into. This kind of reminds me of like, I've never heard this word used for Castle Amber, but like other adventures have used the word funhouse module, where it's like, I know for White Plume Mountain, it's been called a funhouse module. This is kind of like feels the same to me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we kind of have to, because it's all about the third scroll that he has.
Okay. So a very important room, the next room, number 36, is the library. In this room is an individual named Claude Amber, which once again is just a normal person's name. It says, he is an unusual member of the Amber family. Not only has he chosen to follow the teachings of law, but he is continually trying to get the other members to bend their ways. Good luck. Good luck, buddy.
And if you just attack him, because your party's a member of the Hobo Army, they will basically, he will call the Lupins in room 44, which has a bunch of Lupins in there, and they'll come running to help him. But hopefully are less murder hobo-y with this one, and you talk to him, because you really do want to talk to him.
And it's kind of funny, too, because you might have run into an Amber that looks like they, you know, follow the teachings of law, but they don't. So
right.
This module wants you to really, like, talk to people and explore, like, their motivations, which is you know, for a funhouse dungeon, like I was saying, like, it's not just about weird stuff happening. It's also about, like, figuring out characters' intentions, which is, you know, an interesting design for sure. But he does have something important. There's 3 scrolls in his library, right? Yeah.
Right. So if you want to search the library, you have to pay the toll, because he's like, well, if you find something useful, it's part of the Amber family, so you got to give us 5,000 gold, which is not trivial, although, you know, you probably have found quite a bit of gold in this adventure.
Yeah, here's the gold we stole from your house.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah, no, we got it.
But yeah, the first is a cursed scroll, which turns you into a dog. Okay. The second scroll is can either be locate object, fireball, wall of ice storm, or wall of fire for a magic user or an elf. And the third scroll is a piece of parchment containing instructions on how to escape the gray mist, which is important.
Yes. So if you're, I don't know, you could kind of guide your party to, this piece of information in other ways, but yeah, this is how you kind of want to like, hey, this is how you escape the whole thing. So this third scroll reads as follows. To those who would be free, the secret will break the curse surrounding Castle Amber and lift the gray mist is engraved on the inside lid of Stephen Amber's casket. To summon Stephen Amber's tomb from beyond space and time, 4 magic items are needed. The 4 items, the enchanted sword of Solaire, the viper-circled mirror, the ring of Iban, and the potion of time travel can all be found in Averoigne, our old homeland. Touch ring to viper's tail, anoint the sword with the potion, shatter the mirror with the sword, and Prince Stephen Amber's tomb will appear. And then search first for the gate of the silver ring keys, which we already talked about, is in another, I think it was in the chapel, right?
Yeah, there's been many silver keys.
Scrawled on the bottom of the scroll is another handwriting, are these notes. Solaire, the enchanted sword, Sephora Malche, Villon, the viper-circled mirror, Gaspon de Nord, Paragon, the ring of Iban, Luc de Chandelier, Les Hibon, Jamais, Potion of Time Travel, Ezrak, Jahan Muramas. So it's like all these, like, hey, who has these things? So when you go back to Averoigne, you have to like figure out who these people are and what they're about, and then they're giving you clues about it. So it's pretty cool.
I'm extremely glad you read that and not me, because I wouldn't have been able to pronounce half those things.
Right.
So I do want to point out okay, so the thing that you said, to summon Prince Stephen's tomb from beyond space and time is like, the phrase beyond space and time is an extremely like Lovecraft thing to say.
Oh yeah.
At this time, like Strange Tales, the big 3 were H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and Robert Howard. So like, once again, Strange Tales is influencing the modules that we're reading.
Yeah, and that all of his stories, or most of his stories, all had things that are like out of space and time in another dimension, and traveling to another dimension. There's dimensional time travel and stuff in the stories. So I also do want to point out, in the greater context of the Amber family, that when they came here, so I do want to point out that when they came to Glantry, they changed their name from Amber to Solaire. So that is also part of when they talk about the enchanted sword of Solaire, that's actually now their last name in Glantry.
I also figured that was a reference to one of the Averoigne stories. It wasn't any of the ones I read.
Yeah.
But I just assumed that was a reference to something. Let's see.
We have to talk about the card.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the card room is, so there's a woman dressed. Okay, so first of all, so we're on page 14 in room 38. Obviously, like, not going to get too into this, but there's like a Romani woman in the center of this. It's like a stereotype that when you come in, she says, "Welcome, come in, come in. The cards know all. The cards see all. Make yourselves comfortable. Who will be the first to choose a card? Pick a card, any card." And this is Madame Camilla Amber.
She's actually not there.
She's not there. She's also, once again, using wizard eye and projecting herself into this room.
Yes.
So she gives you have a choice of like drawing a card. You will get 1 out of 10 different tarot cards, which they have like the French name of the tarot cards on here. And each of them has a magical power. Should we go over like what these cards do? Probably, right? Here, so the first card you can get if you roll a 1 is the Moon. It's magical power. So it's upside down. So normally, like tarot, if you draw a card upside down, it like inverts the meaning. Which it says it's upside down. That's a reference to that. It doesn't actually say that, but The chooser temporarily goes insane and no saving throw. He or she will attack one party member at random, fighting with weapons or spells. It will last one turn only.
Fun.
The next, number 2, is the King of Wands. The chooser receives a gift of a magic wand, staff, or rod chosen by the DM or at random.
So again, we're like, you might get something bad, you might get something good. Let's see what happens.
The Queen of Cups. Number 3, the chooser receives a magic cup, which will glow warm when someone tells a lie to its holder. The cup has 2 to 5 charges, which is important because there's a lot of NPCs that lie to you here. So that is actually quite useful in this module.
It's a nice one to have.
All right, the Fool. Magical power. That's number 4. The chooser has a feeble mind spell cast on him or her. The Page of Coins, number 5. All the coins the chooser is carrying suddenly disappear.
So strength. The chooser has a strength spell cast on him or her. Nice. The Wheel of Fortune. Have the chooser roll a 2d6. On a roll of 2 to 5, the character will be at -2 on attacks and saving throws for the next 2 to 20 turns. On a roll of 6 to 8, nothing happens. On a roll of 9 to 12, the character will get +2 on attacks and saving throws for the next 2 to 20 turns. So it's like, it just encapsulates the whole thing going on with these cards. The next one is Death. Guess what? The chooser must save versus Death Ray or die.
Very surprising.
Yay! Yeah. The Knight of Swords. The chooser receives a curse +1 weapon appropriate to the character's class. Its users will always attack when sighting potential opponents and will continue to attack until the wielder or all enemies are dead. Spellcasters can attack with spells or weapons. Remember that its possessor will not voluntarily get rid of the cursed weapon and will use it in preference to other weapons. Fun. It's +1 though, so that's good. The Juggler. If the chooser is not a spellcaster, he or she receives a ring of spell storing with 4 spells of the DM's choice stored in it. Ventriloquism, Knock, Fly, and Dimension Doors are recommended. Otherwise, nothing happens.
You just read that, and I meant to look this up when I was reading it, and you just read that, and I was like, wait a second, the Juggler is not a tarot card. Like, all of those other things are, but the Juggler is not. And I just looked it up, and there is a person, Oswald Worth, Swiss occultist, who created his own version of the tarot, and that is his version of the magician. So that's the magician in, if you're gonna map that to like a normal to like Rider-Waite deck, then it would be the magician.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so we're going to skip a few rooms that don't really have that much in them. Going to page 15, the Green Room. So the walls and the ceiling of the room are painted green. A giant man stands in the center of the room. His skin is pale green, his hair is long, he's got a shaggy beard, and his hair is dark green. He has a 2-handed sword. He blocks the other doorway in the room, and the green man will tell the party that the only way they can pass is if they cut his head off. This is an obvious reference to Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Obviously, yeah.
So this is another literary reference.
Thankfully, there's been a movie out that has a very similar thing, if you've seen the movie.
And yeah, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is like a really old Middle English. I don't think it's a poem. I think it's according to the internet, it's considered a alliterative verse. The author isn't really known, but it's like a really influential text. So this is a reference to that. And it kind of just talks about.
Yeah, it's a tough fight because you can't cast any spells on him. He doesn't take any damage, and you have to roll a 16 unmodified 16 in order to cut off his head. So somebody has to basically roll a 16 on a melee attack roll, or maybe I guess you could do an arrow. Sure, and that cuts off his head. That's the only way you can defeat him.
Yeah, and it says that if you use his 2-handed sword and roll a 16, so I think specifically with that 2-handed sword.
Oh yeah, no, it's only with the 2-handed sword. You're right. So that's going to be kind of a tough fight because he's just going to keep on hitting you for 1 die 8 plus 3 as an 8-hit die monster. So,
okay. Let's see, where are we?
Black Room goes to the dungeon.
Yeah, the Black Room will take you into the dungeon. I had to look this up. So in room 43, the red room, it says so basically these rooms all have different like color themes. In this one, it says the wall and the ceiling have been painted scarlet. The incense of sulfur, benzoid, and euphorbium fills the room. I had no idea I know what sulfur is, but I had to look up the other two. Benzoid is a fragrant gum resin obtained from a tropical tree of Eastern Asia.
Oh, okay.
And euphorbium, I was very confused by this because I found an acrid, dull yellow or brown resin consisting of the concreted milky juice of several species of euphorbia, formerly used as a purgative or emetic. But like other places that I read, it said that it has no odor. So I don't know if it's supposed to be referencing that or what.
Yeah, that's weird.
Also, emetic, I didn't know what that means. It means it makes you vomit. So that's a interesting thing to make out of incense. Some epicac incense.
Epicac incense. Yay.
This also kind of this room gives you a kind of like a plot hook because it says there's a person in here who wears reddish gold armor, and it says the man is a member of the Brotherhood of the Sun. So it is not an amber, it is a guy who is in something called the Brotherhood of the Sun. And it says he has taken service with Claude Amber in return for Claude's past help in slaying an evil Ifriti. So that's like an interesting plot thread you could pull on.
Yes.
I just want to point out as well the foyer, the next room, it has gremlins in it, and I just like this. I like this sentence where it says gremlin magic is more playful than deadly. So they kind of just like mess with you. They don't try to kill you.
Yeah, they're literally gremlins and fuck around with you. So, it's fun. It's fun. It's part of the chaos of this whole adventure.
All right, so moving on to part 6, the dungeon. The first room was a little surprising to me. So this is room number 46 on page 15, the magic letter square. So first of all, it explains that there is a large square grid in the center of the room, and huge capital letters have been painted in the middle of each square. Okay, so the way that this room works is that there is a square grid in the center of the room, and there's a door on the other side, and you basically have to walk through the grid to get to the door. I suppose you could like fly over it or something, but assuming you're not going to do that. If you so the names in the letters in the grid correspond to different names of spirits. And if you step on them in a specific order, you will get possessed by that spirit, basically. Like, you will be enchanted by that spirit. And the names are very strange. So the names are Gohen, Orari, Hasea, Iraro, and Nihag.
So really, they're all spelled back. Like, one is Hasa is, you either which way or backwards or forward, you always get that. But Gohen and Nihag are reverse of each other, or whatever you want to call that, right? And Orare and Oraro are the reverse of each one of those.
So this really could have used a picture to explain it because it's kind of confusing. Also, this references a thing that... So I had a player in Mage the Ascension who was in my group who was really into like Order of the Golden Dawn and all of that like occult stuff. And I only know about these magic letter sequences because of him. But essentially, like, there's a book called the Book of Abramelin, I think that's how you say it, that has, like, a lot of influence on, like, Western mysticism, or, like, I don't know if mysticism is the right word, but occult. And that references, like, these magic squares that you basically, like, spell out the names of spirits in to get power. And I only knew that because of him. So I was like, oh, that's a reference to this. And I looked up what the name of that book was and where it came from. But, like, this doesn't really explain it super well. Also, like, maybe there is maybe there is like something about D&D getting you into the occult, because this is straight up like an occult thing that it's referencing.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's why they didn't want to say that. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be.
But I mean, I imagine it's not a coincidence that, because in that book, I think like you make the magic square and you put down like Hebrew letters that spell out like spirits, and then that's what gives you powers or something. It's obviously, it seems like it's a reference to that. But once again, you are presented with options that will either curse you or give you a great benefit. So Gohen gives you, if you step on the letters that spell Gohen, Gohen, it gives you 1 to 3 points of wisdom, which cannot be raised above 18. If you spell out Orare, you get +2 to all saving throws, which is quite good. If you spell out Hasea, you are struck blind. And if you spell out Eraro, you are transformed into a werewolf and should be run by the DM. Oops. And then Nihog gives you 1 to 3 points of charisma.
And if you don't spell anything, but you do spell out a word, that's not one of those, you get lunacy.
So if that is like actual lunacy, like you will act normal until the moon is full.
Yes.
Well, which is interesting. So the players, like, I don't think there's a way you could find any reference to these words anywhere else in the module. I don't remember seeing that. So
no, I don't think there are.
It's kind of like touch and go. I mean, I guess you can allow some sort of knowledge check or something if you're playing like a newer version of the game, for like anyone with Arcana to be able to be like, oh, these are names of spirits, and Hasea is a mythical spirit that was struck with blindness or something. Like you could do that, but it seems like it's kind of an interesting design. I feel like they should have elaborated on this room a lot more. All right, so I do want to talk about 48B, the Brain Collector.
This monster is great.
Okay, so this is it kind of looks like, this room looks like a laboratory, and there's like all these, beakers and surgical tools and stuff in here. So there's a table in the center. There's strapped to it is a human. And then there's a large, horrible, unearthly creature on 6 crab-like legs. It has a grotesque, bloated body covered with an oily, yellow-orange membrane from which protrude masses of short tentacles, 4 yellow, bulging eyes, and a repulsive, tooth-filled mouth in the top. There are 5 large lumps on the upper part of its body, just above its baleful eyes. So this strange monster is Ne Thalgu, or a brain collector. So obviously this is some like Lovecraft shit, right?
Yeah, there's some definite Lovecraftian stuff going on here.
So basically it says that like, because Castle Amber keeps traveling through time and space, at some point it picked up this weird extra-dimensional monster that got trapped in here. And what it does is it takes people's brains out and it like absorbs them and then moves it into a pocket on its head, which is like what the lumps are. They're actually like brains that are inside of its body.
And every time it collects a brain, it gets a new magic user spell.
So obviously this thing is an evil, horrible monster that will try to take your brain. So not only are it's like more, you don't know where it's going to happen. Like you're dealing with like werewolves and like all of the ambers are weird. And then you open a door and there's a straight up like Lovecraft monster in this room.
Yeah. Cosmic horror. That's right here. Taking your brain.
And then once again, H.P. Lovecraft was considered one of the big 3 of Strange Tales. So this is like Strange Tales,
Yeah, I mean, the only thing to say is that like, obviously the Amber family are creating their own constructs, and this is where they're making them.
It does note that like, it's literally impossible for the players to actually, because like, obviously PCs are going to be like, I want to create my own army of like people that I can kill people with. And it says you can't do that.
Yeah, specifically says you can't do it. You're not smart enough.
All right, so there is an alchemy laboratory, room number 50 on page 17. So this is interesting because as soon as enough people enter this room, it says as many characters as possible, the doors magically lock. And vents will open and begin to fill the room with black powdery cloud, which moves as though it is alive. So every round that a character breathes in these fumes, they save versus spells or they fall asleep. And you basically, it's unavoidable unless you like have a solution for this puzzle.
Or you can use the knock spell to get out, but yeah.
So basically it says like you need to make up a dream for the players, but no matter what, if the save versus spell, the dream will become real if the individual fails to save versus spells a second time. And the other characters will, of course, see the end results of a dream. So, essentially, like, if you dream that you're being killed by werewolves. So, just as an example, roll to save versus spells, you fail, you fall asleep, you roll again, you fail, and let's say you have a dream of, like, a werewolf slashing you open or something. You get slashed open in real life.
But it's also like, maybe you could have a fight with that monster. So you might win, but you then see the result of you winning that fight and loss of hit points and all that stuff. Or
and it does give you like 10 different suggestions that you could use for a dream. So if you don't want to make it up, you can just use it as a table. There are some interesting one here, which like once again, it's another thing where if you fail, you might actually get something. So dream number 3, it says you dream that you saved the life of an important courtier in Galantry. You befriended this character and successfully plotted on the character's behalf, and your character has been made an honorary lord or lady in Galantry. So if you fail the save, then you become a lord or lady in Galantry. But some of these are like,
pretty cool.
You fall off a cliff and die.
Yeah. Or a boulder that, is going to come and crush you and all kinds of stuff.
There is something that comes up later too. Dream number 5, it says you dream of a strange land called Averoigne. You will disappear from the room and will be out of play. And it later references, like, when we get to Averoigne later on, it says, like, if there are characters that, if you dreamed that you're here, the character is here. So you could get your character back later, which is, I guess, pretty interesting. So, room number 51, the lair of the Great Worm. I just wanted to talk about this because this is a mound of treasure. There is a worm that secretes slime on its back, and it has rolled over its treasure. So its treasure hoard is, like, stuck on its back. So when you look at it, there's all these like treasures and shields and jewels and stuff in it.
Yeah, I kind of like that whole thing. It's like, oh, I just see this big pile of treasure, and then when you go over to it, it's just a big slime monster underneath, which is kind of cool.
I would have a ton of fun with this. Like, if my players were attacking it, I would describe how, like, you hit a pustule and, like, gold coins fly everywhere. Like, it would be a really fun fight to narrate. So I do like that idea of, like, the horde being integrated into the monster. Like, I might steal that and use it for a dragon or something at some point. Okay, before we get to Averoigne, I really only want to talk about the Demon of Death, and I guess the Land of the Ghouls, and I guess we're going to have to talk about the Gate.
Right.
All right, so this is, like, sometimes when I read these modules, I'm like, oh, this is why the Satanic Panic happened.
Seriously.
So, page number 18 on page 53, the Demon of Death. A pentagram surrounded by a circle has been painted in white paint on the floor in the middle of the room. So I can just imagine, like, someone's, Christian mom picking up Castle Amber and flipping to page 18 and seeing that there's a pentagram and being like, what is this? What is happening?
Yeah, what? My kids are worshiping demons.
So there is a creature inside the pentagram. It's a death demon, which is a new monster in the back. So basically it will promise anything to the party as long as you break the pentagram so it can get out. And obviously when you do, it just attacks you. It says that death demons have no sense of gratitude and only the insatiable desire to destroy.
And if it bites you, you have to save versus poison at -2 or die. And the claws will paralyze you. So it's kind of a rough thing. It doesn't have a lot of hit points, but enough. So yeah, it could be crazy if you let it out, which is like, why would you let that out? You're insane.
Right. And also there is a horde on the wall that, like, an ivory horde, there's a hunting horde. That's right. It's a hunting horde that you could blow and it will force any demon to return to its plane of existence. So even if it starts trying to murder you, you do have that option of blowing the horde. And maybe players are just like, well, we're dying. I might as well see what this horde does.
And since I'm watching Freerun all the time, this demon totally makes sense, given the demons in Freerun.
They're all horrible creatures.
They all just are. They just want to eat humans.
This is an interesting room. I could see, like, the question is, like, why are they summoning a demon? But they also have a horde to get rid of it. So it's like, obviously, maybe some magic thing that they're doing, and there's a contingency in case something happens.
Yeah, it seems more of a whole thing of, like, they're, the Ambers are actually kind of evil, chaotic evil, crazy people who are summoning demons to, find out what they know or whatever. So that's how I sort of took that room as.
Yeah, they're experimenting with things that they are not supposed to be experimenting with. And there's a lot of Satan stuff in the the Clark Ashton Smith stories, so it only fits. All right, so number 56, entrance to the land of ghouls. So in the middle of the room, there's a pit. It's guarded by 6 ghouls. It says it goes to an underground labyrinth, and it leads to the land of the ghouls. And basically, it's another part of the adventure which, we didn't come up with this, but here's, a hook for you to,
Adventure in the land of ghouls.
It's if you want to add a dungeon to this dungeon or, have a thing for your players to do after you're done with this, you can add that. And a lot of the modules that we talked, they purposely put in, hey, you can make an adventure here, sort of rooms. If you don't care, you could just cut out the hole and put 6 ghouls in here, whatever. The next room is important. So page number 57, room number 57 on page 18 is the Gate of the Silver Keys. Set into the south wall is a 10x10 silver gate with 3 large keyholes. In front of the gate is a giant lion made of amber.
And the giant, I forgot that the giant golem, it's a golem. It's a giant lion golem made of amber, and it will just basically attack the party as soon as they open the door.
One thing that I do like about this is if you kill it, it does drop the scroll from the library, the one that's titled To Those Who Would Be Free, the one that tells you how to escape.
Right.
So it's like a contingency. If your players don't go to the library, they'll know about the gate. If they kill, they're probably going to kill. You're going to have to kill this thing eventually.
And you need 3 of the silver keys, which we've been talking about. I think there's a room or 2 we didn't talk about that has a silver key, but yeah, basically you need to get 3 of the silver keys to activate the gate.
At least 3 of them. I think there's more than 3 in this module. So you will have to put the keys into the keyhole and then turn them simultaneously. It also has a note that you could modify the number of keys needed depending on how much exploration you want your players to do, or you could subtract it. They just need 1 key. It's however you want. You could adjust that. But this once on the far side of the gate, there's a clearing beside a road in the middle of a dense forest, and the gate works one way only. So it takes you from Castle Amber to Averoigne.
And now we're back in medieval France.
Yes, so part 7, Averoigne. The first sentence here, Averoigne is a province in a parallel world similar to medieval France. In this particular parallel world, magic is considered to be an evil pagan practice. So it's basically just the Averoigne is from the stories that we read for Clark Ashton Smith. This is the thing he had to get rights from to put into the... this is the thing that Tom Moldvay had to get rights for to put into this module. This is the thing he didn't create. And at least it tells you to look at it. It basically says Averoigne is based on 11 short stories by Clark Ashton Smith that were in Weird Tales. God, I think I've been saying Strange Tales this whole time. Oh well. I'm just going to feel like an idiot when I edit this. So yeah, it links to the bibliography at the back, and it says, hey, you should maybe go read these stories to get a flavor.
Yeah, and there's a, now we're back into a map. Now we're back into, Isle of Dread, where we have a whole area to explore and a hex crawl, basically.
So this part of the module is much different than the rest. It has a generic map of Averoigne, and it doesn't give, there's different... So basically the goal here is to get the magic items that you read about in the scroll and do the little ritual to get to the tomb of Stephen Amber. And you could run this as a point crawl. You could run it as just hey, let's do some seeds where you go and get the items. You could, I guess, spend as much time on this as you want. I don't think you would run this by itself, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to get into Averoigne in the first place. I'm there's not really enough in this to make it a whole campaign or something, but you could have way more stuff going on too if you wanted to. So, you could just decide how you want to do this, but really there's just 4 things you need, which is the Enchanted Sword of Solaire, the Viper Circled Mirror, the Ring of Ebon, and a Potion of Time Travel. So, there's various ways to get the time travel potion, but there's basically encounters for each one of the other items.
Yeah. One thing that I just want to point out, it has a wandering monster table, and you can run into certain characters. And one of the characters, number 2, Giles Grenier, he was in one of the stories I read. So the characters that you run into are actually from the Averoigne stories. And the story that I read that he was from was called The Mandrake. And it's just about, like, Giles Grenier makes love potions. And he has, like, he's like he has a witch wife. And he kills her and buries her in the yard. They get in an argument, he kills her, buries her in a yard. And then the mandrakes that he makes the potions from, like, start becoming, because mandrakes are, like, vaguely humanoid shaped, like, they kind of look like they have arms and legs. The mandrakes he makes the potions from that grow from her grave look like women, like, start to look like feminine. And then all the potions that he made, like, instead of being love potions, like, make people kill the person that they love instead, and then he gets burned at the stake.
Okay.
So yeah, he is a sorcerer who specializes in mixing potions, particularly love potions. So that's a reference to the story The Mandrakes.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. That's pretty cool.
And it is actually not a very long story, so if anyone was interested in reading it, it's a pretty quick read.
Yeah, any of those stories are actually useful in reading, just in general. Like, if you want a sort of a flavor of a that's one of the big 3 for those sort of beginning cosmic horror sort of stories. They're good. They're good stories. They're fun.
It does actually talk about, like, that story. It says Giles murdered his wife in a fit of passion, and now the ingredients he uses to make his potions are cursed. So there's a 50% chance his potions will do the opposite. And, like, in the story, it's like, because the mandrakes are made out of, like, a violent act of killing his wife, they make people kill people instead of falling in love. So these characters, I mean, I recognize Giles from the stories that I read. I don't recognize any of these other ones.
Not on the Wandering Monsters, for sure.
Oh no, Gerard de la Automne. I don't know how to say this guy's name. He was also in one of the stories I read. He basically falls in love with. Wait, that was the one I made some notes. Oh, right. Okay, so this is... Sorry, I'm trying to remember. So he's from the story, I think it's a rendezvous in Averoigne. And his thing is, like, he goes to a castle that has vampires in it, and they try to, like, hypnotize the people in there so they can suck his blood. And he ends up, like, fighting back against the vampires, essentially.
Okay.
So yeah, these characters are from the stories that we read.
Yeah, Jehan Mauvassier. He was in one of the stories that I read about the Bishop of Gimes, who's sort of this Catholic, bishop who wormed his way into becoming a bishop, is actually a dark magician. Which is pretty cool. So he's like, there's this whole thing about how, I think this is the guy that, he sort of like shapeshifted or sort of got the main character while he was trying to, escape, and try to tell the Catholic Church that this guy's actually evil. This guy is obviously evil, and he's trying to, he'll try to trick you because he tricked the main character in that story.
Yeah, so essentially, like, all these characters are not just random, like, made up people that like Tom Moldvay made up. They're actually from the stories that he's referencing.
Yeah, and I think, Moramis is also in that story as well. And, like, Moramis is like a good, sort of goodish, like, magician, if there is one, in Averoigne, sort of before magic became tainted and dark. So, yeah.
So it also does reference, like, when you get to the entrance, it says, hey, if one of the characters fell asleep in that dream and ended up here, they're actually here. Uh, but it just basically references like, hey, make sure the players like understand in order to get out of this, they have to follow the instructions on that scroll. Which it should be unavoidable, but you might have to like hit your players on the head with it if they don't understand what they have to do. So there's 4 magic items that they need. So they need the enchanted sword, the vipered circled beer, the ring of Ebon, and a potion of time travel. And these are 4 different places that they could go to get this.
The potion of time travel, I believe there's a, like, if they, one of the random monsters has it. I forget which one it has. One. Oh, I think Jahan Mussaver has one. Because he travels back and forth in time, so you could somehow get it out of him or kill him and get one.
Yeah, and it like I just scrolled down to the potion of time travel. It specifically says like multiple people in this world have a potion of time travel. So there's multiple ways for the party to get it. One thing to note as well is it does talk about magic is considered evil in this world. So if you're like in one of the main cities and you're like, I'm going to cast mage armor, you might get burned at the stake or whatever.
Yeah.
Which might be like a funded version of D&D depending on what you're used to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, how much of this do you really want to impart onto your players? So it's sort of up to you. So, you know, you could sort of decide how much flavor and stuff you want to bring from all of those, you know, things that you may or may not have read, and bring it into the story. And like, they're actually traveling to these, you know, these towns and these places and talking to people, and you could do all that, or you could just sort of fast forward some of this to whatever you wanted to do. I will say that this first one, the Enchanted Sword of Solaire, I think both of us read one that was very similar, where you sort of go into a different land and a different place, almost like a different dimension. And there's a beautiful woman there who is, you know, obviously a black sorcerer, and a Lamia, as they said. And this one, so in this one, it's ruled by Sephora. And Sephora has an ability where she can charm any male who sees her. And the story that I read had that in there for sure.
Yeah, 2 of the stories I read had men being charmed by women. Women turned out to be vampires or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, one turned out to be a hag, and the other, yeah. So that was a common thread in these stories, I guess, was dangerous women charming men.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, yeah. To be clear, also the sword is quite powerful. It is a +3 sword that's +5 versus undead. And it will.
Yeah, this is exactly the story that I read, because you have to kill the werewolf, and that is part of that story. That there's a werewolf that's hunting the Lamia, this sort of dark sorceress, and you end up killing it.
Oh yeah, when they succeed in destroying the werewolf. So yeah, it is a reference to that story.
Yeah, because she can basically just kill everybody, probably, because she's like pretty powerful. So basically, she gives a quest to the PCs to do that, and then, you know, as a part of that, she gets the will give them, you know, the sword.
Yeah, like she's so powerful that she just doesn't care about giving away a +3 sword.
Yeah. +5 versus undead. Jesus.
Yeah, also of note, if you have an unmodified roll of 18 or better and you hit an undead with it, it just kills it immediately. So it's a pretty strong sword. The Viper circled beer.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, this is the one where you have to destroy the Colossus. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the story that I read about the Colossus of I forget what the last name of it. But yeah, this is the Colossus.
So we did talk about this at the beginning of the podcast. The Viper Circled Beer, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is referring to the art at the beginning of Castle, like the front of Castle Amber. It has the Undead Colossus, which is why I was like surprised that was the cover of this, because it's just like this random off thing that you're doing in another dimension, and it's not Castle Amber. Which is like a little surprising that it's the cover. I mean, I love the art. I think it's cool. It's just a little surprising once I read this. Like, I thought based on the cover, this was going to have some sort of like Attack on Titan giant thing going on, but it really doesn't, other than this part.
Yeah, the story basically, this is exactly the same thing. Like, there's a magic powder, destroys the Colossus. So yeah, that's, and basically it's, Gaspard de Nord is the one who destroys the Colossus with the powder, knows about it because he was once he was a student of this evil Nether, who's like a necromancer. He basically took like all the dead bodies from all the graves of any body of like who was stout, like somebody who, a man who was stout, and they basically and then just made this giant vat of flesh and, basically made the skeleton first of the Colossus and then used the flesh of all of those people to then create all of the flesh of the golem of the Colossus. And then he sort of soul jarred himself into the Colossus and then took his revenge on the town of Rions, which is basically this exact same, this adventure hub.
Right. Yeah. And of note, the Colossus is an HD 100 monster with 350 HP that hits for 10 to 80 damage. Like, you're not meant to go blow by blow with this thing. It will absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, you will not be able to really face this. But you have this black powder. You use the black powder. It will kill the Colossus. Gaspard will be like, hey, great, thank you. And then gives you, the mirror, I suppose.
Right. And because, like, the players aren't supposed to outright attack it, like, you can have some fun with this adventure. Yeah. Like, you could do, like, a Shadows of the Colossus. Like, they're crawling all over its body. And I don't know. You could have some fun with that. But obviously, it'll be pretty obvious to your players that it will crush them if they try to, like, go blow by blow. All right, the ring of Ebon. So this is the one where there's a beast. The beast of Averoigne attacks whenever there's a comet in the sky, right?
And that's the story I read too, is the beast of Averoigne.
Yeah, so we kind of like split up and did half of these stories. So I read one half of them and Kyle read the other half. So you did read the Beast of Averoigne. Was it the same thing where there was like a comet in the sky when it attacked?
Yeah, so this comet comes in there and basically, it's just, this beast is destroying monks and the abbot, and they find out that it's actually that's Theophile, who is actually the beast and is being possessed every time by this whole thing. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, these are all from these stories. Like, they're just lifted directly from these stories.
Yeah.
It's like, what if you could interact with the fiction that I like,
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. Especially because it's like, I mean, of those three authors that I've been talking about, Clark Ashton Smith is like the one that's probably less known. Like, most people are familiar with Robert Howard from, Conan the Barbarian, and H.P. Lovecraft is everywhere. At least his influence is everywhere. But like, Clark Ashton Smith, I didn't know about him until I read this module,
Right.
All right, the next item is the Potion of Time Travel. There's multiple ways of getting it. It basically says, like, there's several people that can get it for you or have it. And it basically lays out, like, hey, if you don't run into it or have it as, like, part of the random encounters, because some of the random encounters characters have a Potion of Time Travel, it gives you this, like, city that you could go to, and you could fight as a Dark, the Bishop of Zymes.
Yeah, which is the story that I read as well.
You could also, like, just straight up trade for it too. If it also says, like, you should be able to take some sort of it basically says, like, if you confront him in secret and you have some sort of precaution against his treachery, then you should be able to trade for the time. Like, you could make up a quest for him, you could trade something like a magic item, but you should be able to trade for it as long as you don't outright try to talk about sorcery in front of people that will burn you at the stake for it.
Like, 2 of the random encounters have it, and so you could either kill the assassin guy who is a part of this whole Azardark thing, or who's the Bishop of Thymes, or you can. There's a good musician person, Moramas, and she has one, so she'll probably just give you one. So there you go.
Yeah, so that's it for Averoigne. You get all of the magic items, you enact the ritual that's in the scroll, and you get teleported to part 8, the Tomb of Stephen Amber. Once again, just a dude's name. That's just a normal guy.
Or Etienne. It's Etienne. Etienne Amber.
So this takes you to... So basically, the haze you are surrounded by the haze again, which heals the party. The thing that we talked about at the beginning. And then you find yourself in an endless plain, and in front of you is a massive, square tall tomb made out of amber-colored marble, and it says carved it over the entrance is the name Stephen Amber. So, like, obviously this is his tomb.
Right.
I have some problems with this part. Like, after the rest of, like, the way that the rest of the adventure worked, you get to this, and it's, like, kind of a slog. There's the first guardian, and then there's second guardian, and the third guardian, and the fourth guardian, and they're all, like, large fights. Like, it's a blue dragon, a flame salamander, etc. Like, it's a bunch of fights.
It's a series of boss monsters, basically. So yeah, I could see what you're saying with that. And there's not much about each one, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing sort of ingenious about it. There's just fight a manticore, fight a mud golem. You know, there's not a lot. It almost feels like they kind of ran out of space, and they just made it there.
Yeah, like, I get to this and I feel like, hey, did you run out of time? Or, like, sometimes in D&D, they purposely make things vague so the DM can fill out the details. But this is just like, I don't know, they ran out of page space or they ran out of time or what. But I honestly, after this whole adventure, would probably omit all of this and just be like, let you go to the tomb. Like, go directly to the crypt.
Or, you know, have one fight that's interesting, or out of these, you know, there really isn't that many interesting fights. The mud golem might be interesting. You know, the 5-headed hydra might be an interesting one to do. But you also sort of there is something to be said about, like, well, why does he have all these guardians to his tomb if he wants to kind of be free? You know, I don't know. It is kind of a weird one.
Because his family sucks. That's why.
Right. So maybe, like, he needs to have those there so his family doesn't just resurrect him and then kill him. I don't know. It's kind of like, all right.
So we're not going to go, like, room by room here, but there's the first guardian, the second guardian, the third guardian, the fourth guardian. So there's, like, 4 different rooms, like, in a row that have guardians. And then there's a fire-themed room, an air-themed room, an earth-themed room, a water-themed room, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the things that you would fight, the first guardian is a sleeping blue dragon. The second guardian is a stone giant. The third is a manticore. The fourth is a 5-headed hydra.
So yeah, I mean, I guess you could have all that happen, and you got to fight all that. Little anticlimactic.
Yeah, I will say, like, I don't know. I mean, I will say a dungeon that has elemental themed rooms is absolutely my shit. So it's weird that I'm saying this, but yeah, I just feel like the way that this is tacked on the end of the adventure, I'm not, like, a big fan of it. I think I would definitely change this part if I was running this.
Yeah. Do something that's more interesting. Like puzzles or traps or, I don't know, something.
Yeah, I mean, this tomb is hard enough to get to, so do we really need the 4 guardians?
Well, you know, let me look at the map, because I think I don't know if you have to fight everything.
I know you could. I think you could just go straight through. Actually, I'm looking at I have the Dungeons Reincarnated version in my hands, and the Goodman Games actually did it in the style of like Dungeon Crawl Classics art. Let me see if I can find it.
So his tomb is at 70.
Yeah, here, I'll show you over the camera because I'm good at podcasting. See if this works. Nope.
Nope.
So it's like
oh, they did sort of change it.
Yeah, it's like the art style of Dungeon Crawl Classics. So you can, like, just straight go through all the center rooms.
Right. Or you can go around, which I'm not even sure why you would do that.
I guess.
But yeah, so
you want to clear every room and get more treasure. I mean, that's, like, a pretty motivating factor in D&D.
I guess. Yeah, because it basically, it's like there's a bunch of rooms surrounding it, and in the middle of it is Stephen's tomb. So you could just go and bypass, like, 2 of the. I mean, I guess it depends on where do you show up. Yeah, okay. So 62 is the first room. Okay, so let's look at this. So 62 is the first room. So you either have to go left or right. So either you go into fire or you go into, looks like that must be air. So you can choose one. Then you get to 65, which is another guardian, and then you can go to 66. And then go to 68 or 67. Then you have to go to 69, and then you can go to 70. So you do have to, like, do some kind of order of the guardians, and they're not all the same. So you might go to fire. You might fight the fire one. You might fight the air one. You might fight the water or the earth. But you have to fight all the guardians. So you have to fight all the guardians, and you get a choice of what two elements you get to fight in order to get to his tomb. That's how this works.
I think they might have changed it for the remake. Let me look.
Goodman Games. Because I'm looking at the tomb and going like, okay, why is it like this? And then it's basically like you don't fight everything, but the only thing you don't fight is your choice of two elements.
Oh yeah, okay. So no, I think it's the same. Let me look. I just might have been misinterpreting the art. Oh no, it's the same. They just drew it differently. I'm dumb, and I didn't realize one of the rooms doesn't have a door.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't just go straight through it. You do have to sidetrack into one of the other rooms.
Yeah. So it does force you into, you have to face all the guardians, first, second, third, fourth, and then you have to decide whether you're going to do, fire or air, or you're going to do earth or water. Or you could just do all of them because that's just how you are and you want the experience points. But again, kind of anticlimactic. I mean, it's actually kind of a cool setup of what you have to do, like where you have to go. But what you have to face is just a series of bosses, which is like, okay.
Yeah, like it would suck to go through this entire module and then solve it, and then you die to the great white shark or whatever.
Yeah. It's just like, what?
So the point of this is to get to Stephen's Crypt. So Stephen's Crypt is as you go in, there's a tapestry that covers all of the walls that depict the assassination of Stephen Amber, which is like referenced in that other room that we talked about. And then carved inside the lid of the casket are the words, "Burn the tapestry to break my curse." And you'll see a skeleton wearing a gold crown inside the casket. And this is not a trick. You actually just have to burn the tapestry to break the curse.
Yeah, there's not much to it at this point. Again, it's a little anticlimactic. You just burn the tapestry and then Stephen comes back.
I do kind of like the final room of a dungeon being like, you got the reward, like, here you go, here's the, kind of like the scene in Star Wars at the end where they're like in the parade and celebrating, kind of like, This is like how I see this room.
Yeah.
So once you burn the tapestry, a man dressed in rich velvet robes, wearing a golden crown and other fine jewelry, suddenly appears, and he says, "Thanks, I've been trapped in there for ages." The tomb disappears and the party is back outside Castle Amber. So he thanks you, you go back to Castle Amber, the Grey Mist is gone, and because you broke the curse was keeping Castle Amber in like a time-stopped like state.
Different dimension thing, yeah.
So basically all the inhabitants of Castle Amber just like age rapidly and die because they're no longer stuck in time.
Right. They all age fast forward.
Right. And you can see the river that at the beginning of this module, it described that like you camped out next to a river. It says like you can see that outside Castle Amber because the mist is gone. Stephen Amber is a 25th level magic user. He will not, it would be stupid to attack him. There's no reason the party would do that.
Yeah, or probably do, and then it's like, what? And then he just kind of teleports away.
Well, he gives each party, it says, he will reward each of his rescuers with a piece of antique jewelry worth 3 to 18,000 gold.
Right, and a magic item.
And a magic item.
If they don't attack him. So if they don't attack him, he gets the stuff to you. If you do attack him, sure.
If they do attack him as a DM, be like, please don't do that. Just let me give you the reward, guys. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
So he gives you a lot of gold, and he gives you an item appropriate to each individual's class, which is like pretty interesting. So it says like, hey, if they're a fighter, maybe give them like some magic plate mail, etc. It will not be cursed. You can re-roll any cursed item. You re-roll any cursed items that you get. He also has a ring of 4 wishes, and he will bring back up to 4 characters that died during this adventure.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
And that's the end of the adventure.
So, having read Fast Forward in Glantry and in Mark of Amber, he's not a 25th level magic user. He's a 20th level magic user. I don't know why the 5 levels matter, but apparently they do. So Etienne is actually so Stephen Amber is a 25th level magic user, and Etienne is a 20th level magic user.
Yeah, and I think it's because Mark of Amber is a 2nd edition adventure, and there's no level 25, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, he does use he talks about the wishes thing, and an old school D&D, he's casting 9th level like wish spells. He actually wishes all of his family members back to life. Ugh. So all of these characters come back.
Why would he do that?
Just so you know.
They're awful.
Because he loves his family.
They're all awful. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't inflict the world with that.
But he magically gazes them, or gaze?
I've always said Gaius. I don't know if that's right.
Gaius, maybe? Yeah, and then they're all geezed to never attack him or try to hurt him. Which is great.
So yeah, he creates a problem for the rest of the world except him.
Yeah, exactly. And basically they all have potions of longevity, so they live forever.
All right. So then we have like new monsters. It talks about like the giant amoeba, the brain collector, and the death demon, and all this new stuff that we talked about. Is there anything else? I do like in the back how it has a pronunciation guide, because he like realizes that people might not be familiar with French.
Yeah, that piece is good.
And then, there's also the bibliography of like, hey, here's the stories it was based off of. Go read these stories if you really want. And all of those stories are online, so if anyone is interested in reading those, you can check them out. All right, Kyle, now that we're like now that we've read through Castle Amber, what did you think about this adventure? This is always like, every time I read a top 10 adventures of all time, this is usually on there.
It's really good. I mean, there's a lot of elements that I would want to put into my games. There's elements that I see in so many other modules and so many other places. It's a classic module that I think, if you're looking to read a module, because that's a thing we do, but maybe not everyone is. This is one to read for sure.
Yeah, I think I actually thought I didn't have any problems with anything that was in this module other than the last page. Like, I didn't feel like I would change anything much.
Yeah.
Other than like the actual tomb itself. And like, I can see why people remember this adventure, because it's like, it's weird and wacky in like a really fun way. Like, this is the type of adventure that if you talk to like 10 different groups that did this, it would just be like 100% different every time. Like, there's a lot of play in this module.
Right.
Like, I'm sure, there's no way. This is a type of module where it's like, there's no way this was the same for any two groups. Like, it's just so much potential in every single one of these rooms.
Yeah, and you can play it differently. I kind of wish I would have been able to go through the whole module as a DM and DM'd it. I mean, I only got through like the first wing, and we didn't even get through the whole thing. So, it was really, I hadn't read it since I was a little kid, and I didn't really, and I kind of skimmed it. So, reading it and realizing the other piece that I didn't really realize is that there's all of this other material to read about it. That was sort of, really fun to explore. And, sometimes, where both of us are sort of a little bit like, we got to read. How much are we reading? How much do we have to read? Because, we're now internet people, and we just want to like digest it super quick, as everyone else does on these days. And like, I looked forward to actually reading all the supplementary material and getting through it, because, it was like really cool stuff and interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I liked all of the stories that I read for this. I enjoyed, like, the reading his fiction was, I could see why this was inspirational to people who were early D&D, because it's like this interesting, like, dark fantasy world that is like still familiar, but somehow still like way different, and filled with like, things that go bump in the night.
Yeah. And it's way more familiar in some ways than D&D, because, it's our world essentially, with magic being something that's dark and evil, which we consider, probably in medieval France, that's exactly what they would have considered it. It's really cool.
Yeah, like I could for sure see why this is such a classic module, like why people like it so much. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Castle Amber. Join us next session for I6 Ravenloft by Tracy and Laura Hickman.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone. Make sure to follow us on your podcast app of choice and follow us on Blue Sky at adventuresgonemad.bsky.social. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@adventuresgonemad. Are you enjoying Adventures Gone Mad? If so, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Did you play Castle Amber? We want to hear about it. Contact us at adventuresgonemad@gmail.com and join us next time for Ravenloft. He says, so we were going to need a wider fantasy world to put them in, up to the point of most TSR scenarios. God damn it, I can't read. 1 second. 1 second. I'm going to go look at the book and feel fucking stupid. 1 moment.
All right.
Oh. Okay. Let's try that again. Oh, well. We're doing it live.
Oh, dear.
Hope it goes well. We don't have to record again. So
I'm not recording again, Kyle.
it will happen one day that we're going to have to do it again.
Oh, God.
Just letting you know. That's why I have Craig, so that there's less chance of that happening. But, you know, if we get to the end of the podcast and I have audio and you don't, or the other way around, I can't make a podcast with that.
Yeah, there's no way.
Anyways, so I'm getting tired and my throat's all fucked up.
That's cool.
This is going to be funny because halfway through the recording, my voice is going to get slightly better, even though I'm going to still sound like shit.
Probably. I love that my computer just decided to chime. Like, God damn it.
I did not hear that.
Hopefully, okay, good. I think it was just maybe it was just in my ear. Because I have my phone vibrate, and I was like, I heard it, and I'm like,
no, how am I going to shame you for making phone noises if,
I know.
One of these days I'm going to forget, and you're going to shame me, so it's worth it. You're building equity to shame me back.
Yes.
This next room is a lot. 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
Who is a Swiss... Oh, we recorded for 3 hours, Kyle.